Germany of Iron and Blood. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601, Sudden Attack. The British fleet also discovered the German Navy's breaking fleet at almost the same time. Very well, the Germans have finally been found. The 1st Battleship Squadron continued to advance, and the 2nd Battleship Squadron scattered and surrounded. This time, we must eliminate all 3 German battleship cruisers. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. The 12 battleships of the British fleet were divided into 2 battleship squadrons. The 6 battleships of the 1st Battleship Detachment are 2 Nevada-class battleships, 2 New York-class battleships, and 2 Wyoming-class battleships. The 6 battleships of the 2nd Battleship Squadron are 2 Florida-class battleships, 2 Delaware-class battleships and 2 South Carolina-CLASS battleships. The 1st Battleship Squadron is in front, and the 2nd Battleship Squadron is behind. When the fleets of both sides just met, order the 2nd Battleship Squadron to turn around. In this way, it can avoid being discovered by the German fleet. Lieutenant General Martin's move was obviously intended to outflank the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German fleet and eliminate them all in one fell swoop. The British fleet was immediately divided into 2 parts. One part kept sailing, continued to advance, and encountered the German fleet head-on. The other part began to turn around, preparing to outflank the German fleet. At this moment, the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers led by Major General Lubeck actually encountered only 6 battleships of the 1st Battleship Squadron of the British fleet. General, they are Americans. There are 6 battleships. On the battleship Blücher, the staff officer reported. What are the Americans doing here? Do they want to break into the no-fly zone of the Empire like last time? Major General Lubeck frowned. Last time, the US fleet forcibly broke into the no-navigation zone designated by the German Navy and almost misfired, triggering a battle between the German Navy and the US Navy. In that case, the scale of the war will undoubtedly be further expanded. Be careful and ask the Americans about their intentions. Major General Lubeck ordered. Yes, General. The staff officer replied. Contact the US fleet through shared channels. On the battleship Nevada, the communications officer of the British fleet is reporting to Vice Admiral Martin. General, the Germans are asking about our intentions. They claim this piece of sea is his no-sail zone. Go to the F***CK no-sail zone. This is clearly the high seas. Even when the Royal Navy of the British Empire was at its strongest, it didn't dare to define such a no-sail zone so arrogantly. What's more, the German no-sail zone, it's still aimed at the British Empire. Lieutenant General Martin cursed. General, how should we reply? The officer asked. Tell the Germans that we are performing a routine cruise mission. Lieutenant General Martin said. Yes, General. The staff officer nodded. Order all ships to prepare for battle. After the distance is reduced to 10,000 meters, immediately launch an attack. At the same time, lower the American flag and raise the St. George flag. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. Yes, General. Lieutenant General Martin's order was issued to all ships of the British fleet. The ships immediately began combat preparations. Turret's coat had come off, and it was starting to spin. The shells were also lifted from the ammunition depot and stuffed into the barrel, ready to fire. On the other side, the German fleet also discovered the abnormality of the British fleet. It's just that they don't know what these Americans want to do. General, the Americans claim they are on a routine cruise. Routine cruise? Warn them to turn around and leave this sea area immediately. This is a no-sail zone designated by the German Empire Navy. If it gets closer, it will be a provocation to the German Empire. Major General Lubeck said with a cold face. The current Imperial German Navy is the most powerful navy in the world. They don't need to give the Americans face at all. General, the Americans have behaved abnormally. Their main guns have taken off their gun coats, and the turrets are rotating, aiming at us. An officer reported in panic. What? What do these Americans want to do? Could it be that they want to go to war with the Empire? Damn, warn them to stop provocative behavior. Otherwise, the Imperial Navy will be rude to them. Major General Lubeck ordered. Yes, General. However, Lieutenant General Martin turned a deaf ear to the warnings of the German fleet. 6 battleships have already aimed at the German fleet. It's just that the distance is still relatively far, so he didn't give the order to fire. Closer, closer. As long as the distance is shortened to 10,000 meters, we will be able to fire, Lieutenant General Martin said secretly. In view of the fact that there is a certain gap between the US Navy warships and the German Navy warships in terms of sighting and ranging equipment. Therefore, Lieutenant General Martin hopes to shorten the distance of engagement as much as possible. In this way, the officers and soldiers of the British Navy will be able to give full play to their quality advantages. The accuracy of shelling will also be greatly improved. General, the Americans didn't give us any response. The staff officer reported. Damn. What do they want to do? Major General Lubeck asked. What is our distance now? Major General Lubeck asked. General, now we're less than 15 kilometers away from the Americans. This distance is undoubtedly a relatively dangerous distance, and it has already entered the effective range of the main guns of both sides. Order all ships. Prepare for battle. Major General Lubeck ordered. The 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers began to prepare for battle according to the order. The turrets rotated, aiming at the British fleet. The gun cover of the main gun has also faded, revealing the ferocious muzzle. Warn the Americans, if they get closer, we will shoot. When the distance between the two sides will shorten to 12 kilometers, Major General Lubeck ordered. Yes, General. After hearing the warning from the German fleet, Lieutenant General Martin showed a smile on his face. What is our distance now? Lieutenant General Martin asked. General, we are about to get closer to 11,000 meters. Very good, but it seems that the Germans have been cornered by us. It is not easy to get closer. Order the ships, aim at the target, and fire. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. Boom. 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 The battleship Nevada took the lead in firing, and 2 double-mounted 356mm main guns and 2 triple-mounted 356mm main guns began test firing. The other 5 battleships also started shelling at the moment the Nevada battleship fired. Chapter 602. The battle begins. Boom. 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 Orange-red flames shone at the muzzle, and shells roared and smashed towards the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy. The shell hit the sea, exploded, and splashed water jets into the sky. Damn it, are the Americans crazy? They dare to fire. Is this trying to provoke a war between the two countries? Major General Lubeck was dumbfounded. He had always believed that the Americans were nothing more than a bluff. If they were really asked to open fire, the Americans would definitely not dare. However, now the US fleet has actually opened fire, which is simply beyond everyone's expectations. Are the Americans looking for death? Immediately send a telegram to the fleet command. We have been attacked by the Americans. The war between us and the Americans has already begun. Rear Admiral Lubeck roared loudly. There was a hint of excitement in his roar. Originally, for the generals of the German Navy, after the naval battle with the British, the war was considered to be over. This made these generals feel a little regretful. They hope that the war can continue, so as to gain more military exploits. In this way, after the war is over, they will be able to get more promotion opportunities. Now, the Americans are involved in the war, which undoubtedly made these generals get their wish. Although, the strength of the US Navy is not weak. But that's only relative to other countries. In the face of the powerful German Navy, the strength of the US Navy is nothing more than that. They can take out the US Navy at any time. However, the shouts of the staff officer shattered Admiral Lubeck's dream. General, those warships raise the St. George's flag. Those British fleets. The staff officer shouted. What? The British fleet? How is that possible? Rear Admiral Lubeck refused to believe it. He picked up the binoculars and saw the entire rising St. George's flag, and his face became very ugly. Conspiracy. This is definitely a conspiracy. Those warships are clearly American warships, but now they hang the British naval flag. This is definitely a conspiracy against the Empire by the Americans and the British. Major General Lubeck, he gritted his teeth and said, General, what should we do? Fight back. Fight back immediately. regardless of whether we are facing the Americans or the British, since they opened fire on their own initiative, the battle will begin. Fight back immediately and sink all those warships. Send them all to the bottom of the sea. Major General Lubeck roared. Although, the opposite British fleet has 6 battleships, and they only have 3 battle cruisers. However, Major General Lubeck was not afraid. Boom. 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 The 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy launched a counterattack. The 3 triple-mounted 50 caliber 305mm main guns on each battle cruiser fired fiercely at the British fleet. Although 4 of the 6 warships in the British fleet are equipped with 356mm main guns, and the other 2 are also equipped with 50 times the caliber of 305mm main guns, the German Navy is still not afraid. Boom. A shell exploded on the sea surface more than 50 meters to the left of the battleship Blücher, splashing a high column of water. As the flagship of the unit, the battleship Blücher was besieged by the 2 most powerful Nevada-class battleships of the British. Although the ranging and sighting equipment on American warships is not very good, the excellent personal qualities of the soldiers of the British Navy make up for this very well. This makes them no worse than the German Navy in terms of shelling accuracy. Put the German Navy, which was at an absolute numerical disadvantage, into crisis. General, the British have 6 battleships, and we only have 3. We can't take advantage of it. An officer was a little worried. Major General Lubeck looked gloomy, and he felt more and more that this was clearly a trap. The appearance of those warships, as well as the caliber of the main guns, looked like the Americans' Nevada class, New York class and Wyoming class. But why are they flying the British Navy flag now? Are we firing? This is really strange. Major General Lubeck is still struggling with this problem. As an admiral of the Navy, he undoubtedly has a deep understanding of the main warships of various countries. The intelligence agencies of the German Navy have conducted a large amount of intelligence collection on the capital ships of various countries, so that the admirals of one's own side can understand these capital ships, and once encountered in a naval battle, they can make accurate judgments, and will not be caught blind. Yes, General. It is indeed the American Nevada class, New York class and Wyoming class, the staff officers said. Damn Americans, they must have colluded with the British. Or they transferred these warships to the British. Even those who manipulated those warships were Americans at all. They clearly wanted to attack the Empire by doing that. Major General Lubeck scolded. The German generals can easily guess the sinister intentions of the Americans. Report our situation to the headquarters and tell them that we need reinforcement. Major General Lubeck ordered. Yes, General. In addition, increase the speed. If the battle situation is not good for us, we can retreat calmly. Major General Lubeck then gave the order. After all, the Blücher class is a battle cruiser with a maximum speed of more than 25 knots, which is more than 4 knots faster than the American battleships purchased by the British. Once they are determined to evacuate, it is impossible for the British to catch up. It's just that it is not in line with the style of the German Navy to evacuate as soon as they meet each other. Naturally, they hope to continue the battle. It would be best if they could win more with less and sink all the warships of the British fleet in one fell swoop. In that case, it is undoubtedly a great achievement. Boom. 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 The battleships on both sides started to shoot violently. All the main guns are roaring. The gunners were all firing desperately, smashing as many shells as possible at the opponent's battleship. On the battleship Nevada, Lieutenant General Martin had a smile on his face. In his opinion, it is undoubtedly an advantage to use 6 battleships to deal with the 3 battle cruisers of the German Navy. What's more, there are 6 other battleships that are making a detour to outflank the German Navy. At this speed, the outflanking can be completed soon. At that time, they will have a greater advantage. Obtaining the final victory is undoubtedly a certainty. Chapter 603, Emergency Reinforcement. In the North Sea, on the battleship Bavaria, the flagship of the German Navy, Admiral Reinhard Scheer frowned tightly. However, when he saw the huge warships riding the wind and waves on the sea, his brows stretched. According to the information received, the US fleet left its home port and entered the Atlantic Ocean. When it was impossible to judge the intentions of the Americans, the German Navy was very vigilant. In order to avoid being attacked, the main fleet of the German Navy left the military port and entered the North Sea, preparing to go deep into the Atlantic Ocean to deal with all possible problems. If the Americans really want to intervene in this war, the German Navy doesn't mind killing them, by the way. After all, in the face of the powerful German Navy, the strength of the US Navy is nothing at all. The powerful warships of the German Navy are undoubtedly a guarantee of their strength. This made the German Navy not at all afraid of whether the US Navy would join the war. General, an urgent telegram from General Lubeck. The adjutant reported to Admiral Reinhard Scheer. Admiral Reinhard Scheer frowned after reading the telegram. The American battleship is flying the British naval flag. What's going on? Admiral Reinhard Scheer couldn't figure out why. However, no matter what, the battle has already begun. The Americans and the British must have colluded secretly. It seems that they want to catch us off guard. Fortunately, we have the relevant information and reacted in advance. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. Lieutenant General Hipper said. Admiral Reinhard Scheer nodded. Send a telegram to General Spee and ask him to rescue General Lubeck and the others with all his strength. Regardless of whether there is any conspiracy in it, the Imperial Navy can only do so in this battle. We must win. We cannot lose. As for the Americans, after we win this naval battle, we will have plenty of means to deal with them. Yes, General. Lieutenant General Hipper nodded. In addition, report this news to the country. His Majesty the Emperor and His Excellency the Marshal must also be paying attention, so don't make them wait. Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. HMM. Lieutenant General Hipper was non-committal. At the same time, Admiral Reinhard Scheer also issued an order for the fleet to speed up. Originally, the fleet was cruising at a speed of 12 knots. However, now that the battle has begun, it is natural to rush to the battlefield as soon as possible. Under the command of Admiral Reinhard Scheer, the speed of the fleet accelerated to 20 knots. In this case, it only takes 1 day for them to reach the sea area where the incident occurred. Berlin, Imperial Palace, the office of Emperor Qin Tian. The Minister of the Imperial Navy, Marshal Earl Tirpitz, and the Minister of the Imperial Army and Chief of the General Staff von Falkenhayn joined hands to seek an audience. Your Majesty, the Navy has already exchanged fire with the enemy. However, it is not sure whether they are Americans or British. We can be sure that the warship belongs to the Americans. However, after the battle broke out, the flag was replaced by the British St. George's flag, said Marshal Count Tirpitz, frowning. Your Majesty, this must be a conspiracy. The Americans and the British have colluded. Even if the Americans have no guts to get directly involved in the war, they undoubtedly gave the British great support. Otherwise, those warships it is impossible to fly the British Navy flag. Von Falkenhayn also said. I will ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to send a note to the United States. If they want to get involved in the war, this is of course not a good thing for the Empire. However, the Empire is not afraid of them. Qin Tian said. Your Majesty, I always think that the Americans have no courage to join the war at this time. After all, we have already gained an absolute advantage in this war. Even victory in this war is inevitable. The United States, even if people join the war, they can't change the result. Therefore, as long as the leaders of the Americans don't have problems with their heads, they won't join the war. Von Falkenhayn said. Qin Tian nodded. Yes, but from the standpoint of the Americans, they undoubtedly hope that the Empire will lose this war. No matter how bad it is, the Empire will have to pay a greater price in this war. So, they will spare no effort to support the British. I think those warships should fly the flag of the British Navy for this reason. The US government transferred those warships to the British. They even directly let American sailors participate in this war, but in the name of the British. Damn Yankee. Marshal Earl Tirpitz couldn't help cursing. The intentions of the Americans are undoubtedly extremely sinister. But for the Empire, there is no other way now. Even if we know the purpose of the Americans, we cannot declare war on them. After all, it is best for us to end the war as soon as possible. Favorable. Qin Tian said. Marshal Earl Tirpitz and Marshal von Falkenhayn both nodded. They naturally knew the current situation. If the war continues to drag on, it will cause great losses to Germany. We can only record what the Americans have done for the time being. If there is a chance in the future, let them pay for it," said Marshal Earl Tirpitz. "The most important thing now is that we have to win this naval battle. Only in this way can the American conspiracy be smashed. Let the Americans know that the trap they have painstakingly set is only to increase the results of the Imperial Navy. That's all," Qin Tian said. "Yes, Your Majesty." General Reinhardt has already responded. The other warships of the Breakthrough Fleet will immediately go to the sea area where the incident occurred for reinforcement. The main force of the High Seas Fleet is also on its way to the actual incident location. It is estimated that we will be able to arrive tomorrow. At that time, the Imperial Navy will directly defeat the Americans and the British with its powerful strength, Marshal Earl Tirpitz said. Qin Tian nodded. He was very assured of the strength of the Imperial Navy. It can be said that, even if the Americans and the British are tied together, they are now unable to confront the Empire in terms of navy. The final victory will definitely belong to the Empire. In the Atlantic Ocean, Lieutenant Admiral Spee, commander of the Imperial Navy's High Seas Fleet, also knew that the situation was critical. After receiving an order from Admiral Reinhardt and ordered the fleet to quickly approach the fleet led by Rear Admiral Lubeck, the other 9 battle cruisers rushed to the battle area at a speed of up to 25 knots. Chapter 604, Fierce Battle. Boom. 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 In the Atlantic Ocean, a fierce battle is going on. The 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy and the 6 battleships of the British Navy were inseparable. Although the British Navy has an absolute advantage in the number of capital ships, but in the naval battle, they still failed to take advantage of it. The battle cruisers of the German Navy are fast, and the battle distance is gradually extended from the very beginning. Soon, the combat distance increased to 15,000 meters. At this distance, the warships of the German Navy can maintain a high hit rate with their advanced fire control system. But compared to before, the British Navy is a little bit worse. But because of their numerical advantage, they can do 2 against 1, which gives the British fleet comrades a great advantage. Boom. Or 305mm artillery shell fired from the battlecruiser Blücher hit the battleship Nevada. The shell directly hit the bow main turret of the battleship Nevada. Unfortunately, the shells failed to penetrate the armor of the main turret. The armor of the Nevada-class battleships of the US Navy is quite thick, especially the main turret armor, which is as thick as 457mm. Under normal circumstances, such armor cannot be penetrated at all. Even the 380mm main gun of the Bavaria-class battleship of the German Navy can only be penetrated at a relatively short distance. Not to mention that the main guns of the battleship Blücher are all 305mm. Even with a main gun of 50 times the caliber, there is still nothing to do with the armor of these turtle warships. After the shell exploded, the main turret of the US Nevada was safe and sound. It's just that the huge vibration and impact shocked the gunners in the turret to death. Such an injury is nothing at all. After replacing the spare gunner, it can quickly resume firing. Lieutenant General Martin stood on the bridge and witnessed the explosion. When the turret was hit, his heart was almost in his throat. After the smoke cleared, he couldn't help laughing. Although the other performances of the American warships are not good, their defense is really abnormal. In this respect, they are stronger much than the Royal Navy's warships. If it were the Royal Navy's warships, I'm afraid it must have been severely injured. Lieutenant General Martin was secretly stunned. Of course, for them, there is no doubt that there are only advantages and no disadvantages. The armor is thick, which means that the battleship has a stronger defense. In battle, it is even more difficult to be sunk. In this naval battle, they will have a greater advantage. On the other side, the officers and soldiers of the German Navy were also dumbfounded. When the explosion broke out on the Nevada battleship, the officers and soldiers cheered. But then, when they saw that there was nothing wrong with the battleship Nevada, the German naval officers and soldiers were suddenly dumbfounded. My god. Didn't it penetrate? The 305mm main gun with 50 times the caliber couldn't penetrate the main turret of the American warship? Their defense is too strong. An officer exclaimed. Major General Lubeck's face became very ugly. He knew that they were at a greater disadvantage now. It may not be so easy to defeat the enemy. The American tortoise battleship really deserves its reputation. However, the armor of the main turret is thick, which does not mean that other armor can also resist it. Major General Lubeck said. The defense concept of the US Navy is to focus on defense, that is, to install thick armor on key parts such as turrets, water lines, power cabins, and conning towers. The rest of the parts can be saved, or even run naked. It does not mean admitting that such a design concept is undoubtedly correct, because the warships of the German Navy actually adopted this design concept. A battleship, if it is hit in a naval battle, it will be battered and riddled with holes. But as long as the key parts are not fatally damaged, it is difficult to be sunk. Even the combat power will not suffer too much loss. Boom. 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 The battle became more and more fierce. The main guns of both sides were roaring crazily, and the heavy shells slammed into the opponent's battleship fiercely. There were jets of soaring water splashed on the sea, as if a whale was spraying water. Boom. A violent explosion sounded on the starboard side of the battleship New York of the US Navy. Or 305mm artillery shell fired from the battlecruiser von der Tann successfully hit the side of the battleship New York broadside. After the shell exploded, a 127mm secondary gun of the battleship New York was blown away, and a bunch of secondary battery shells were also detonated at the same time. It caused a raging fire on the side of the battleship. Damn it. I was hit again. If this goes on, it won't work. Tell the main turrets of each ship to aim at one point. We don't have so many shells to waste. Lieutenant General Martin was a little anxious. After all, now it is just facing 3 battle cruisers of the German Navy, and the battle has just begun. Once the main force of the German Navy enters the battle one after another, the battle will last for a long time. If too many shells are wasted, they will not be able to participate in the next battle. In this case, I'm afraid that their plans will be greatly affected. After all, these warships from the United States have become their main force. Yes, General. The staff officer issued the order to the ships. All officers and soldiers of the Royal Navy know the importance of the outcome of this naval battle to the British Empire. Once it loses, the British Empire will be completely finished, and there will be no more chances. Therefore, they must do their best to win. However, even if you are determined, you may not be able to hit the enemy's warship. After all, there are too many unexpected factors in naval battles. Boom. There was a violent explosion, and the battlecruiser Blucher couldn't help but shake violently. Major General Lubeck, if he hadn't grabbed the handrail, he would probably have fallen directly on the deck. Damn it, we were hit. Major General Lubeck's face suddenly became very ugly. Report the loss. Major General Lubeck roared loudly. After a while, the officer reported, General, the number 3 main turret at the rear was hit. The entire main turret was destroyed. Bastard. Major General Lubeck couldn't help cursing. The loss of a main turret caused the battlecruiser Blucher to lose 1/3 of its firepower. This made them, who were already at a disadvantage, now at an even greater disadvantage. Chapter 605. Dangerous. Good job. God bless the British Empire. Lieutenant General Martin cheered. Although, it was only a heavy damage to the battleship Blucher of the German Navy, not a sinking. But this is undoubtedly an excellent start for the British Navy. Lieutenant General Martin believes that as time goes by, their advantage will become greater and greater. The final victory will soon be achieved. This shell was fired from the battleship Oklahoma. The battleship was not attacked, allowing them to aim and fire calmly. Under such circumstances, the hit rate is naturally higher. The battleship Blucher was severely damaged, which made the officers and soldiers of the German Navy have a bad feeling in their hearts. However, even so, they still continued to fight. Major General Lubeck is already thinking about whether he needs to withdraw from the battle. After all, they are completely at a disadvantage now. If the fight continues, it is very likely to cause even greater losses. Every battleship is a treasure of the German Navy. Losing any of them will make them feel distressed. Although running away in embarrassment would make Major General Lubeck feel a little uncomfortable. But now that the enemy is strong, and we are weak, it is understandable to evacuate. You can't just fight to the death for the so-called glory, and cause huge losses in the end, right? In that case, it is truly unwise. However, at this time, the German Navy successfully retaliated against the British fleet. The battlecruiser Leopold, which was at the end of the battle line, hit the battleship Wyoming of the British fleet. The defense of the battleship Wyoming is not as abnormal as that of the Nevada-class battleship. With a displacement of only 27,000 tons, the battleship Wyoming is equipped with 5 dual-mounted 50 caliber 305mm main guns. At the same time, the maximum speed is also maintained at 21 knots. This makes the defense of the battleship Wyoming relatively weak. The waterline armor is only 279mm, the turret armor is 305mm, and the conning tower armor is 279mm. Such armor thickness is undoubtedly relatively weak. Not even the Blücher-class battlecruisers of the German Navy can compare. Of course, this is mainly because the Wyoming-class battleship belongs to the early construction of the US Navy. The performance in all aspects is not mature. Starting from the Nevada-class battleships, the US Navy has focused on defense and enhanced the survivability of warships in naval battles. During the salvo of the battleship Leopold, a full 2 shells hit the battleship Wyoming. A shell hit the front deck of the Wyoming battleship, directly blasting a big hole in the deck. At the same time, it caused the internal compartment to burn. Another shell hit the conning tower of the battleship Wyoming. The 279mm thick armor was directly torn apart. The shell exploded inside the conning tower, killing all the officers including the captain. Good job. Admiral Lubeck couldn't help applauding loudly. Nothing boosts your team's morale more than hitting an enemy ship. After the battlecruiser Leopold hit the British battleship Wyoming, the morale that had fallen not only stopped the downward trend, but also began to rise. General, the defense of the enemy's Wyoming-class battleships and even the New York-class battleships is obviously much worse than that of the Nevada-class battleships. We can completely let the Nevada-class battleships go and focus on the Nevada-class battleships, New York-class and Wyoming-class. In this way, it will be easier to sink the enemy's warship, a staff officer suggested. Admiral Lubeck was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Very good. This is undoubtedly a good idea. Redistribute the strike targets. The Leopold attacked the Arkansas. The Von der Tann attacked the US Wyoming. The US Blücher attacks the US Texas. After solving these weaker battleships, we will deal with the British Nevada class. In this case, it is equivalent to hitting the firepower on the 3 battleships behind the battle line against the US military. Of course, this method greatly increased the possibility of the German army sinking the battleships of the British fleet. But at the same time, because of the serious disadvantage in numbers, the Nevada, Oklahoma and New York of the British fleet can open fire on the warships of the German Navy without interference. Unless the German fleet can severely damage or sink the Arkansas, Wyoming and Texas in the shortest possible time. Otherwise, the situation will only become more and more unfavorable to the German fleet. After seeing that the German fleet changed its bombardment target, the corners of Lieutenant General Martin's mouth turned up slightly. Do the Germans want to deal with the weaker battleships first? They are too whimsical. Order the Oklahoma and New York to besiege the German Blücher with us sink it. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. In this case, with the addition of the battleship Texas, the British fleet concentrated 4 battleships to besieging the battleship Blücher. Moreover, the firepower of these 4 battleships is very powerful, and they are all powerful battleships equipped with 10 356mm main guns. It is equivalent to 40 356mm main guns besieging the battleship Blücher every time. This greatly increased the possibility of the battleship Blücher being sunk. Boom. 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 Shells continued to fall around the battlecruiser Blücher. Although they were not hit, the water jets splashed high from the sea put great psychological pressure on the officers and soldiers on the battleship. Everyone knows it's only a matter of time before they get hit. Even if their defense is not weak, it is really difficult to defend against the shells of the 356mm main gun. Major General Lubeck said nothing, but he was actually betting. If they can preemptively severely damage the 3 battleships behind the battle line of the British fleet, then they still have a chance to turn defeat into victory. As if they were hit, severely wounded or even sunk, then it will be difficult for them to win this naval battle. However, Major General Lubeck also notes that it is very difficult to win, and the chances are very small. Damn the British, when our main fleet arrives, you will have a better time. Major General Lubeck swore secretly in his heart. Chapter 606. Withdrawal. Boom. 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 The rumble of guns on the sea was like thunder. The shells kept falling into the sea, and the violent explosions splashed water jets into the sky, as if the sea area had already boiled. The fierce battle between the German fleet and the British fleet has reached a climax. The attacks from both sides were very violent. It can be said that life and death have been gambled. The British Navy naturally wants to defeat the German Navy, so as to get revenge, and then reverse the situation of this war, so that Britain can win, or it will not lose so badly. The German Navy also wanted to defend the fruits of victory that were about to be obtained, and did not want this war to fall short. In the northwest of the island of Ireland, a huge fleet is sailing southwest. This fleet is very large in scale, with more than 20 capital ships. Their nationalities can be easily distinguished from the flags hoisted by these warships. These warships all came from the kingdoms of Great Britain, France and Italy. The flagship is a battleship Revenge of the British Navy, although it was almost sunk in the last decisive battle with the German Navy. But with better luck, he escaped the pursuit of the German Navy and returned to Scapa Flow. Afterwards, the British Navy mobilized a large amount of resources and worked overtime for repairs. Finally, at the beginning of this decisive battle, let it recover its combat effectiveness. On the bridge of the battleship Revenge, Admiral John Jellicoe, Lieutenant General David Beatty, Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul are all present. They are all at the top of the United Fleet. In order to coordinate and command the fleet, both sides did their best this time. General Martin and the Germans have already fought each other. With their strength, it shouldn't be a problem to eliminate the 3 German battle cruisers. I think the Germans should be in a hurry at this time. A large number of battleships are on their way. We can take advantage of this opportunity to eat up the German main fleet bit by bit, and then defeat the Germans in the final decisive battle. Admiral John Jellicoe said with a smile. It was as if everything was already under his control. General Martin and the others have 12 battleships, and it is no problem to deal with the 3 German battle cruisers. If we can also eliminate the remaining 9 German battle cruisers in the ensuing battle point, then we will definitely win this battle. Admiral Lame said excitedly. As a French admiral, France is now on the verge of life and death. If the combined fleet can defeat the German Navy, it will be able to bring France back from the brink of death. General Martin and the others do have a great chance of winning. However, if the Germans escape, it may not be easy to sink them. Lieutenant General David Beatty said with some concern. After all, the speed of a battle cruiser is much faster than that of a battleship. General John Jellicoe nodded. General Martin will definitely outflank. I hope he can win. May God bless the Allies. God bless the Allies. Everyone prayed to God. The fierce battle is still going on, and the new tactics adopted by the German Navy seem to have worked wonders. The battle cruiser Leopold successfully hit the battleship Arkansas of the British fleet. The Arkansas battleship is the second ship of the Wyoming-class battleship, and its defense is the same as that of the Wyoming. Its armor is too weak, and it cannot withstand the 305mm shells fired by the main gun of 50 times the caliber. The shell hit the bow of the battleship Arkansas and knocked off the number 2 main turret. At the same time, the number 2 main turret that was lifted off hit the number 1 main turret, which severely damaged the number 1 main turret and could no longer fire. Such a loss directly cost the battleship Arkansas half of its firepower. Damn. Seeing this situation, Lieutenant General Martin couldn't help but curse secretly. They obviously had an absolute advantage, and they beat the battleship Blucher of the German Navy into danger. But the German Navy seems to have received special favor from God. The shells that kept falling could never hit, as if they were frying fish, wasting these shells in vain. God, why can't you hit the German warship? Lieutenant General Martin was very anxious. The officers were silent, and they didn't know how to explain it to Lieutenant General Martin. Where is the second battleship squadron? Lieutenant General Martin asked. Since it was too late to hit the battleships of the German Navy, Lieutenant General Martin could only pin his hopes on the 2nd Battleship Squadron. If the 6 battleships of the 2nd Battleship Division can join the battlefield, this will give them a greater advantage. Lieutenant General Martin believed that by that time, they would be able to sink all 3 of the German Navy's battle cruisers. General, the 2nd Battleship Squadron will arrive soon. There are at most 10 minutes before they can join the battle. Very well. Send a telegram to the 2nd Battleship Squadron and let them seize the T prefix. Then, fire me hard, and we must sink the German battle cruisers. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. Yes, General. The battle cruiser Blücher of the German Navy. This battle cruiser has become a shell magnet. The 4 battleships of the British fleet fired wildly at it. A large number of falling shells may hit at any time. This made the German naval officers and soldiers on the battleship very nervous. General Spichian told them that he is leading the main force of the breaching fleet to the south quickly and asked us to go north immediately to meet him. An officer reported. Rear Admiral Lubeck hesitated for a moment, then gave an order to speed up and break away from contact with the British fleet. Damn the British. After we join the main force, we will settle accounts with them. Command the fleet, advance at full speed, and prepare to evacuate. Major General Lubeck ordered. If they continue to fight hard, their chances of winning are really slim. At that time, if you are lucky, you may be able to sink 1 or 2 warships in the British fleet. But at the same time, the 3 of their battle cruisers may all have to be silent here. In that case, it would be too uneconomical. When they merge with the main force of the break-off fleet and assemble 12 battle cruisers, they will have enough strength to confront the British fleet and even gain an advantage. After all, the Blücher-class battle cruiser is the first of the 12 battle cruisers of the German Navy's 4 tiers, and it is also the tier with the worst comprehensive combat power. Level 1 tough. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607, Battle Sinking. Thick black smoke emitted from the chimneys of the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy. The boiler began to be forced to ventilate. High temperature steam entered the steam turbine, and the propeller began to spin crazily. The speeds of the 3 battle cruisers all began to increase. Compared to those American battleships in the British fleet, as long as the fleet's speed increases, then, the British fleet can only look at the ocean and sigh. Although American battleships have strong firepower and thick armor, but speed has become its biggest shortcoming. On the battleship Nevada, Lieutenant General Martin also discovered that the German fleet was retreating. General, the Germans are leaving. Damn, cowardly Germans. Where is their courage? They are about to run for their lives. The 2nd Battleship Squadron must stop the Germans and not let them escape. Lieutenant General Martin ordered. Yes, General. Lieutenant General Martin wanted to eat all 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers in one go this time. Now, it's just a heavy damage to one ship. It would be a pity if you just watch the cooked duck fly away like this. This time, the main goal of the combined fleet is the German Navy's breaking fleet. The fleet led by Lieutenant General Martin besieged the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy. While eating these 3 battle cruisers, it also drew out another 9 battle cruisers from the German Navy's broken fleet. The main force of the United Fleet led by Lieutenant General John Jellicoe will act as the Oriole and finally launch an attack, trying to eliminate all the German Navy's breaking fleet. In this case, the combined fleet will solve at least 1/3 of the German Navy's combat power. When they face the German Navy, their advantages will be further expanded. This is very helpful for them to win the decisive battle at sea. Therefore, Lieutenant General Martin will never allow the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy to slip away so easily. As the speed became faster and faster, the German fleet gradually opened the distance from the British fleet. Although the British fleet was still chasing after them, they kept firing their main guns, but because the distance was too far, the accuracy of their shelling was very low, and the impact point was often more than 100 meters away. Damn British guys, don't be arrogant now. When our main force arrives, you will feel better. Major General Lubeck looked at the British fleet that was chasing them and said through gritted teeth, "You must know that the battle cruiser Blücher has lost 1/3 of its firepower. After this naval battle is over, I'm afraid that it will have to lie on the berth for a while." This made Major General Lubeck very angry. At this moment, the shrill siren sounded again. "General, the British fleet was discovered. In front of us, 6 British battleships appeared. A staff officer said in horror. What? There are 6 British battleships? Major General Lubeck's face suddenly turned livid. Damn it, those are clearly American warships. The Florida class, Delaware class and South Carolina class. When Major General Lubeck put down his binoculars, his face was already dark, as if it was the bottom of the pot. There are a total of 12 battleships, all of which are the main battleships of the US Navy. However, these battleships are now flying the flag of St. George. The opponent actually dispatched 12 battleships to besiege them, which is undoubtedly very dangerous for the entire fleet. If they fail, they will all be sunk here. Boom. 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 The 6 battleships that appeared in front of the fleet have already started firing. One after another, the shells hit the sea surface, splashing high water columns. These 6 battleships of the British fleet successfully seized the T prefix, so that the German fleet is now facing extremely strong firepower from the British fleet. These 6 battleships are all equipped with 305mm main guns. Among them, the Florida-class battleships and the Delaware-class battleships are equipped with 5 twin-mounted main guns, and the South Carolina-CLASS battleships are equipped with 4 twin-mounted main guns. This caused the German fleet to encounter a frenzied attack from a total of 56 305mm main guns at this moment. The battlecruiser Blucher at the head of the battle line became the primary target of the British fleet. Shells fell around the battlecruiser Blucher like raindrops, making the battlecruiser as if it was in a storm. Order the ships, disband the formation, immediately turn to the south, use speed to get rid of the British, and withdraw from the battle. Major General Lubeck ordered. If they continue to move forward, they will only get closer and closer to the British fleet, and they will suffer more and more firepower. Under such circumstances, they can only temporarily avoid the edge and withdraw from the battle. The reason for disbanding the battle line is to allow the 2 battle cruisers behind the battle line to turn around earlier, in order to avoid being hit by the firepower of the British fleet. After Major General Lubeck's order was issued, the German fleet responded immediately. The 3 Blucher-class battle cruisers immediately turned around. The other small and medium warships also followed suit. In the process of turning, it is undoubtedly the most dangerous. This would make the warships vulnerable broadside aimed at the British fleet, making it easier to hit. Boom. Or 305mm artillery shell hit the side of the battlecruiser Blucher, blowing up a 150mm secondary gun. Immediately afterwards, another shell hit the bow of the battlecruiser Blucher, blasting a large hole in the bow deck. Several sailors were killed on the spot. In the next 2 minutes, the battleship Blucher was shot by the British fleet and was hit more than 10 times in total. Not only was the superstructure battered to pieces and a raging fire was ignited, but the steering gear at the stern was also knocked out, losing the ability to turn. At the same time, the seawater poured into the battleship crazily from the stern of the ship. Even if the German warships have strong anti-strike capabilities, they can't hold on under such a blow. Telegram the Von der Tann and the Leopold to maintain speed, break out of the encirclement from the south, and make a detour back. Can't be caught by the British. We can't go anymore. We'll fight to the end. Major General Lubeck ordered. The battleship Blucher continued to fire until it sank due to too much water. More than 1,000 officers and soldiers on the battleship sank into the sea with the battleship, and none of them survived, including Major General Lubeck. Chapter 608, The Final Battle. The speed of the battle cruisers Von der Tann and Leopold has been increased to 25 knots. This is close to the theoretical maximum speed. At this speed, the British fleet simply couldn't catch up. Of course, those light cruisers and destroyers can catch up. But what if you catch up? The main guns of the 2 battle cruisers can easily tear these light cruisers and destroyers into pieces. As for lightning strikes, that is even more impossible. Around these 2 battle cruisers, there are also light cruisers and destroyers of the German Navy to protect them. It is impossible to get close enough to release the torpedo, let alone sink the 2 battle cruisers of the German Navy with torpedoes. Lieutenant General Martin led the British fleet to pursue, but found that he could not catch up, so he had to give up. Damn the Germans, they escaped. Lieutenant General Martin watched the cooked duck fly away, almost gnashing his teeth in hatred. But he had to. There was no other way. In the duel between battleships and battle cruisers, it is not so easy to win a complete victory. Once the situation is not good, the battle cruiser can use the speed advantage to leave the battle. The battleship can only look at the departing battle cruiser and yell, but there is no other way. However, it still sank a battle cruiser of the German Navy, which is considered a victory for the British fleet. After all, in the previous decisive battle, they lost so many capital ships, but they only sank a battleship of the German Navy. Send a telegram to the commander. Tell them that we have sunk one of the German battle cruisers, but the other two have escaped, and we cannot catch up. Now, we will continue north as planned. Martin's will order. According to the scheduled plan, after the fleet of Vice Admiral Martin wiped out the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy, it will continue to go north, to face the other 9 battle cruisers of the German Navy's breaking fleet going south. Now, although only 1 battle cruiser of the German Navy was sunk, the other 2 battle cruisers have been driven away. If they want to join the main force of the German Navy's break-off fleet, they have to go around a big circle, which will take a lot of time. If you are lucky, the fleet led by Lieutenant General Martin may be able to encircle and wipe out the main force of the German Navy's breakthrough fleet together with the main force of the combined fleet. General John Jellicoe and Lieutenant General David Beatty remained silent for a long time after receiving the telegram from Lieutenant General Martin. Although, sinking a battle cruiser of the German Navy is something undoubtedly to be happy about. However, the other 2 escaped battle cruisers made their victory less than perfect. At the same time, it also added a lot of variables to this decisive battle. Your Excellency, Commander, now we seem to have no other choice but to proceed according to the original plan. If the German breaching fleet continues to go south, we may seize the opportunity to eliminate them. If the German breaching fleet if we don't go south again, then we will have to prepare for a decisive battle with the German main fleet. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded. The Germans have now lost 1 battle cruiser, and 2 more battle cruisers are temporarily unable to participate in the battle. Their broken fleet has only 9 battle cruisers left, and they already know that we already have 12 new battleships. Adding our original battleships, they will definitely not act rashly. If we wait until the main German fleet arrives, then we will have to face the huge German fleet with 23 battleships and 11 battle cruisers. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. In that case, it will be very difficult for us to win. Admiral John Jellicoe's face darkened. Although, under such circumstances, the combined fleet still has the advantage of 2 ships in terms of the number of capital ships. However, the overall performance of the warships of the German Navy is even better. Overall, the combined fleet is still at a disadvantage. Not to mention, German aircraft may also participate in the war. In that case, their chances of winning are even smaller. No matter what, this is a rare opportunity for us. If we give up this opportunity, the Germans will be prepared. It will be impossible to defeat the Germans again. What's more, we also have there is not much time left. Victory must be achieved as soon as possible, said Admiral John Jellicoe. Lieutenant General David Beatty nodded. In this case, let's act according to the original plan. It would be great if we can get rid of the German fleet first. Even if we can't solve it, then we have enough strength to fight the Germans again. Perhaps our luck will not be as unlucky as last time. As long as our luck is a little bit better, we may not have the possibility of defeating the Germans. John. Admiral Jellicoe nodded in agreement. The main force of the United Fleet has entered the Atlantic Ocean at this moment. However, they will not join the fleet led by Vice Admiral Martin until they encounter the German Navy's breaking fleet. The escaped battle cruisers Von der Tann and Leopold have already reported to the flagship that they encountered 12 American battleships. The sinking of the battle cruiser Blücher is even more distressing. After Admiral Reinhard Scheer and Lieutenant General Hipper heard the news, their faces were very ugly. Damn Americans, they actually handed over all the warships in active service to the British. Don't they worry about us attacking them? Lieutenant General Hipper said angrily. Of course the Americans don't have to be afraid. The Atlantic has given them good protection. In addition, the Americans have begun to expand the size of the army. We can't attack the United States rashly. Therefore, they can support the British unscrupulously. Lay Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. So, Your Excellency Commander, what should we do now? Admiral Ryan had sheer thought for a while. Now, the strength of the British Navy has recovered more than half. The 12 American battleships, plus their previous remaining battleships, have a total of 19 battleships and 1 battle cruiser. If the break-off fleet continues to go south, I'm afraid it will be ambushed by them. Send a telegram to Lieutenant General Spee, telling him to stop going south and wait for the main fleet to arrive. This time, it will be the last decisive battle between us and the British. We must completely defeat them and win the final victory. Chapter 609, Must Win. TSK. The Americans are really willing to give all the capital ships to the British. It seems that they deliberately want the Empire to pay a higher price in this war. Qin Tian said with a look on his face smile, but those who are familiar with him can feel the killing intent emanating from his heart. The actions of the Americans behind the scenes have completely angered him. If possible, Qin Tian would like to go to war with the United States immediately. But the prerequisite is that Germany must now have the strength to completely defeat the United States. Otherwise, if the battle is halfway through but there is not enough financial resources to continue the fight, the problem will be serious. Now, although Germany's military strength has surpassed that of the United States, however, it is not so easy to defeat the United States across the Atlantic. The population of the United States is larger than that of Germany. Industrial output is also higher than Germany. This allows them to arm a considerable number of troops. Coupled with the advantages of local operations, the German army may be able to defeat the US military in the early stage. But as time goes by, the disadvantages of cross-sea operations will greatly restrict the German army's combat power. At that time, it may be difficult for the German army to win. Once Germany attacks the United States and fails to win, it will have a huge impact on Germany. It may even cause social unrest. In that case, it would be more harmless for Germany to wage such a war. Wars never break out for no reason. The reason why war broke out is because the contradictions between the two sides cannot be resolved and the interests cannot be satisfied. In that case, the only solution is through war. Usually, war is also the last resort. The last resort when there is no other solution. Your Majesty, the Americans have spared no effort to support the British. In the previous wars, they were frantically transfusing blood to the British. They hoped to help the British defeat the Empire. Later, their goal was changed to borrowing the hands of the British to weaken the strength of the Empire. All this is for the interests of the Americans. They are afraid that after the Empire defeats Britain and France, the next one will attack them. Therefore, they hope that in this war, as much as possible make trouble for the Empire. Even if the Empire wins this war, it will be a miserable victory. In that case, the Empire will not be able to trouble them for a long time, said the Prime Minister of the Empire, below. This truth is very clear to the military and political ministers of the Empire. But the problem is, now the Empire has no way to deal with the Americans. Your Majesty, General Scheer has ordered the breaking fleet to stop going south. The High Seas Fleet has already rushed to the battlefield. It is expected to join the breaking fleet tomorrow morning. By then, we will have enough strength to crush the British. Even the Americans gave their active battleships to the British, and they are definitely not our opponents, Marshal Earl Tirpitz said confidently. Qin Tian nodded. He is very confident about the Imperial Navy. Although, the Wilhelm the Great aircraft carrier has not yet entered service. But with a fleet of battleships and battle cruisers, the German Navy is also capable of meeting all challenges. Send a telegram to the fleet and tell them that this time they must defeat the British and completely destroy their hopes. I want to see how they can persist after this failure. I don't believe they can come back from other places. Got so many warships, Qin Tian said. In order to support the British, the Americans even gave the British the main battleships in active service. If these warships are dealt with by the German Navy, the British will be completely finished. At that time, they will no longer have other channels to get more battleships. At that time, the British Navy will be unable to continue to fight. Yes, Your Majesty. Marshal Earl Tirpitz nodded. Qin Tian's request undoubtedly completely destroyed the hope of the British. As long as the German fleet wins again this time, Britain will be completely finished. At 4 AM on May 17th, the German Navy's High Seas Fleet and the breaking fleet converged in the waters northwest of the island of Ireland. At the same time, the battle cruisers von der Tann and Leopold also returned to the team. This brought together all the main battleships of the German Navy, including 23 battleships and 11 battle cruisers. With so many capital ships, it is undoubtedly the most powerful fleet in the world. General Reinhard Scheer, Lieutenant General Hipper and Lieutenant General Spee met and discussed the upcoming battle. There is no doubt that we were cheated by the Americans. They secretly gave the British 12 battleships, which gave the British the courage to fight us again. This time, the update deliberately came to trouble us and defeated us. His Majesty has given us an order to win this battle no matter what, Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. Your Excellency, even if the British obtained 12 battleships from the Americans, they would only have 20 battleships, after adding their own remaining battleships. Could it be that they thought that with these 20 battleships, they could defeat us? Lieutenant General Spee said with a dark face. His side lost a battle cruiser in this battle, which made him very uncomfortable. Perhaps, the British have other advantages. Therefore, we must be more cautious in this battle. Lieutenant General Hipper said. Tomorrow morning, send light cruisers, destroyers and seaplanes to search this sea area. Find the British, and then launch an attack. This time, we must win, and we cannot give the British any chance to come back, Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. Looking back, what the British did was indeed admirable, but at the same time a little lingering. After the main force of the British Navy was eliminated last time, the German Navy generally believed that the British Navy was no longer a concern. But who would have thought that in just 2 days, the British would once again have a powerful navy? If the German Navy hadn't discovered the abnormal behavior of the British in advance, and had prepared a way to deal with it, maybe the German Navy would have suffered a big loss this time. The same mistake, one occurrence is enough. If it reappears a second time, it will be fatal. In order to avoid such a crisis from happening again, the German Navy had to completely wipe out the British Navy in this battle. Chapter 610, Proximity Investigation. At 6 o'clock in the morning, just after dawn, the German Navy's high seas fleet was busy. A seaplane with one took off from the sea and headed south. They will search the nearby sea area of 200 kilometers and be responsible for finding out the British fleet. At the same time, the main force of the high seas fleet is also heading south. Although, the actions of the high seas fleet have become more cautious. However, the goal of defeating the British Navy has not changed in any way. Admiral Reinhard Scheer and Lieutenant General Hipper stood on the bridge of the battleship Bavaria and watched dozens of seaplanes take off to perform reconnaissance missions. With so many seaplanes, the British can't escape this time anyway, unless they hide back to the Irish Sea again. Otherwise, they can only be wiped out by us. Reinhard Scheer said the Admiral. Yes, Commander. If the British retreat to the Irish Sea again, I suggest setting up a large minefield at both ends of the Irish Sea to block all the exits. In this way, the British will no longer be able to leave the Irish Sea is gone. Or, let the submarine force ambush at both ends of the Irish Sea. Once the British leave the Irish Sea, they will first be attacked by our submarine force and suffer heavy losses. Lieutenant General Hipper suggested. This is a good idea. I will propose it to the Admiralty. However, it is uncertain whether it will be adopted. After all, once the minefields are laid down, these mines will threaten the safety of passing ships after the war. I'm afraid the coast of the Irish Sea will be depressed, Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. The coast of the Irish Sea is undoubtedly a relatively developed place in the UK, but these prosperity are all built on the well-developed shipping. If the mines blocked the shipping lanes and no ships entered the Irish Sea, the sea would become a dead sea. Of course, this has little to do with Germany. After experiencing this war, Britain will quickly decline and will no longer be the hegemony of the world. It is also no longer the political and economic center of the world. Germany will replace Great Britain as world power. Berlin, the capital of Germany, will become the political center of the world. Those industrially developed cities in Germany are the new economic centers. When the German Navy High Seas Fleet began to search for traces of the British fleet, Admiral John Jellicoe and Lieutenant General David Beatty, who had not slept all night, were drinking espresso. It seems that only the kind of strong coffee that the bitter people will shed tears can lift their spirits. General Beatty, it seems that the Germans will not give us a chance to attack them. In this battle, we can only fight them in an upright manner. Admiral John Jellicoe said with a wry smile. All day yesterday, they were waiting for the German Navy's breaking fleet. Prepare to destroy or disable this fleet first, and then concentrate its forces against the main force of the German Navy's high seas fleet. But unfortunately, from the beginning to the end, the German Navy's breaking fleet never appeared at all. This makes their plan undoubtedly come to nothing, Your Excellency. Even if it is a decisive battle with the Germans in an open and honest manner, we may not lose. After all, our current number of capital ships is no less than that of the Germans, and there are even 2 more. It is just the performance of the battleships. It's not as good as the Germans. But if our luck is better, maybe we will be able to win the decisive battle. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. He is very confident about this decisive battle in the future. Although, I don't know where his confidence comes from. But having confidence is better than having no confidence. Yes, General Betty. This time we still have a chance. I also believe that we will not be as unlucky as last time. Admiral John Jellicoe said. Luck is illusory, but in naval battles, luck has become an important factor. The lucky side is undoubtedly more likely to win. For example, if it was also hit by a shell, the front of the turret was hit, and the ammunition depot was hit, which were completely different things. The former can escape the crisis with thick armor, while the latter is undoubtedly dead. When will General Martin's fleet join us? Admiral John Jellicoe asked. In another hour, we will probably be able to join us. Lieutenant General David Betty said. In the case that the German Navy was not fooled, the combined fleet's combat plan also had to make some changes. The fleet led by Vice Admiral Martin, who was originally used as a bait, was ordered to assemble with the main force of the fleet. In this way, when they encounter the German Navy's high seas fleet, they will have enough strength to fight against it. If they continue to disperse, once they are encountered by the German Navy's high seas fleet, they will only be destroyed one by one. At that time, they really have no chance of winning. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded. I hope God can bless the British Empire this time. We can't lose again. God will bless the British Empire. We will definitely defeat the Germans. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. A seaplane of the German Navy, hiding above the clouds. And under the clouds, there is a combined fleet of Britain, France, and Italy. Didn't the British just get 12 battleships from the Americans? Adding their own battleships, there are only 20 battleships. However, there are 36 battleships below. It is no less than our battleship, said the pilot. Then how do we report to the flagship? Do we send the report directly to the flagship? Asked the transmitter sitting in the back seat. Report truthfully. After you finish sending the telegram, we will lower our altitude and fly over the heads of the British to see clearly what is going on. Okay, although this is a bit risky. However, the British should not be able to catch up with us. A few minutes later, the seaplane left the clouds and flew directly over the United Fleet. It's the French flag and the flag of the Kingdom of Italy. It turns out that the British not only got warships from the Americans, but also brought in the French and Italians. The driver exclaimed. Quick, the British seaplanes are coming. We must get rid of them and report to the flagship. The seaplane of the German Navy immediately pulled up and began to climb. At the same time, he staggered to avoid the bullets fired by the British seaplane. And they didn't know that the telegram they had sent back had stunned Admiral Reinhard Scheer and others. The British fleet actually has 36 capital ships, which undoubtedly greatly exceeded their expectations. Chapter 611. Carriers lead the charge. On the battleship Bavaria, the flagship of the German Navy's high seas fleet, Admiral Reinhard Scheer, Lieutenant Admiral Hipper, and Lieutenant Admiral Spee were shaking their heads and smiling wryly at a piece of information. 36 ships. The British actually produced 36 capital ships. Where did the other 16 ships come from? Admiral Reinhard Scheer couldn't figure it out. After all, according to their estimates, even if the British obtained 12 battleships from the Americans, there were only 20 battleships in total. For the high seas fleet, 20 capital ships are a big enemy. However, the high seas fleet still has enough strength to eat it. But 20 capital ships have become 36, so there is a problem. All the capital ships of the high seas fleet add up to only 34 ships, which is 2 fewer than the British. Although, the performance of the capital ships of the German Navy is enough to ensure that they have an absolute advantage in this battle. However, there are many unexpected factors that determine the outcome of a naval battle. If you are unlucky, you may lose the naval battle. In addition, even if he wins again, he will definitely pay an unimaginably huge price. After the German Navy became the hegemony of the sea, it was somewhat indecisive. The previous aura that tried its best to pull the British Royal Navy from the throne of maritime supremacy no longer exists. Of course, this is inevitable. Could it be that the scouts misread it? They regarded an armored cruiser or a pre-dreadnought as a capital ship. Lieutenant General Hipper said. This is undoubtedly possible. After all, a reconnaissance plane flies through the air, and it is not necessarily clear at a height of at least several hundred meters from the sea. Probably not. The scouts have all received professional training, and the pre-dreadnoughts and battleships, as well as armored cruisers and battleships, are still clearly distinguished. It seems that for this decisive battle, the British once again learned from us. We got more battleships where we knew. This battle is even more difficult. If we want to win, and win at a small price, we need to be more cautious. Reinhard Scheer said, the Admiral. Indeed. Our task now is not only to defeat the British, but also to maintain a strong navy, to ensure that after the Empire wins, it can effectively safeguard the interests of the Empire in the world. Lieutenant General Spee said. Once Germany wins this war, the colonies of Britain, France and other countries around the world will fall into the hands of Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. As an ally of Germany, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will get a part of the colonies. But the most important colony will still fall into the hands of Germany. You know, the colonies of Britain, France and other countries are all over the world. Without a strong navy, it is impossible to keep these interests at all. While Admiral Reinhard Scheer and others were discussing how to win this decisive battle with the least cost, the staff officer sent a second piece of information. General, the seaplane reported that they approached the British fleet and found that there were French flags and Italian flags in the fleet. Among them, there are 10 capital ships flying the French flag, and 6 capital ships flying the Italian flag. Staff officer, the officer reported. The seaplane scouts are all good. Lieutenant General Hipper admired sincerely. General Reinhard Scheer and Lieutenant General Spee also nodded in agreement. The seaplane pilots are undoubtedly very brave. They brought more accurate information to the Imperial Navy, so that they would not make too many mistakes when making decisions. It turned out that the French and Italians also joined in. No wonder the British were able to gather so many battleships this time. Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. Yes, France, Italy, and the United Kingdom are on the same boat. In order to avoid failure, the two countries will of course do their best. Lieutenant General Hipper said. After all, once the war is lost, it will be a devastating blow to the three of them. The battleships of the French and Italians are very good on paper. However, they have not been tested in actual combat. Perhaps they will be very vulnerable. Lieutenant General Spee said. The French and Italians really can't build any good warships. However, we can't take it lightly. Now, although we have figured out how the enemy's 36 battleships are composed, but the most critical the problem is still to defeat them. Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. Lieutenant General Hipper and Lieutenant General Spee nodded again and again. Indeed, this is the most critical issue, to win this decisive battle. All other questions are empty. As long as you win, all problems will be solved. General, why don't we let the aircraft carrier attack the British first? The aircraft carrier Pioneer and the aircraft carrier Glory made great achievements in the last naval battle. Now, they have changed into more the powerful carrier-based aircraft can drop bombs and launch medium-sized torpedoes. In this way, almost all the warships of the British are targets that they can sink. Let the aircraft carrier launch an attack before our capital ship and the British have a decisive battle. Sink some of their warships. This can not only weaken their strength, but also damage their morale. Lieutenant General Hipper suggested. Admiral Reinhard Scheer's eyes suddenly brightened. Indeed, after the last naval battle, the powerful combat effectiveness of the aircraft carrier has been unanimously affirmed by the German naval commanders. They all recognized the powerful strength of the aircraft carrier and expressed their support for the Imperial Navy's plan to no longer build battleships and battle cruisers in the future, but only build aircraft carriers. Although there are many people who express regret that the capital ship, which represents the giant cannon of the big ship, will withdraw from the position of the capital ship in such a short period of time, but they know that this is the trend of development. If the German Navy wants to secure its position as a maritime supremacy, it must continue to lead the development of the trend. Only in this way can their dominance be stabilized. The 450mm medium-sized torpedo can indeed threaten the safety of most capital ships. If the British capital ship is hit, even if it will not be sunk, it will definitely be severely damaged. Lieutenant General Spee said. How far is the aircraft carrier formation from us? Admiral Reinhard Scheer asked. Just 100 kilometers behind us. Order the fleet to continue going south, and let the aircraft carrier launch an attack after the distance between us and the British is reduced to 50 kilometers. Admiral Reinhard Scheer made a decision. Chapter 612, Carrier Aircraft Attack. North of the main fleet of the High Seas Fleet, a small fleet is heading south at a cruising speed of 12 knots. This small fleet consists of 2 aircraft carriers, 4 light cruisers and 6 destroyers. In front of the huge main fleet, this small fleet is nothing at all. However, almost the entire High Seas Fleet believed that this small fleet represented the future development direction of the Imperial Navy. In the last naval battle, 2 aircraft carriers attacked, and 1 carrier-based aircraft after another used torpedoes to severely damage and sink the battleships of the British Navy upper hand. Prior to this, the combat effectiveness of the aircraft carrier formation was undoubtedly not recognized. After all, isn't it a joke to use those carrier-based aircraft that look like toys to sink a capital ship that looks like a hill? However, the results of the naval battle shut up all those who questioned the aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier formation has proved to the world with their brilliant record that huge battleships are completely vulnerable under the attack of carrier-based aircraft. Even battleships can be equipped with anti-aircraft weapons. But don't forget that the carrier-based aircraft of an aircraft carrier is still very simple. With the development of technology, the shipboard opportunity is more and more powerful. When carrier-based aircraft can carry heavy aerial bombs and heavy aerial torpedoes, it will become a nightmare for all surface warships. This time, all members of the High Seas Fleet are dispatched. The Pioneer aircraft carrier and the Victory aircraft carrier were not far behind and joined this operation. Every member of the aircraft carrier formation is looking forward to more victories in this battle. After all, although the number of carrier-based aircraft carried by the aircraft carrier this time remains unchanged, it is still 48. However, performance has been greatly improved. The carrier-based aircraft carried before, except for 12 fighter jets, were all torpedo attack aircraft. This time is different. The number of fighters is still 12. The other 36 are 18 bombers and 18 torpedo attack aircraft. These bombers can carry aerial bombs weighing up to 250 kilograms and dive and drop bombs at a certain angle. The torpedo attack aircraft can carry 450mm medium aviation torpedoes. The power is naturally much stronger than the previous light aviation torpedoes. It is precisely because of this that the officers and soldiers of the aircraft carrier formation are full of confidence in this battle. They believe that, when they launch an attack, they will definitely be able to obtain more results than the last time. On the island of the US Pioneer, Marshal Prince Heinrich was holding a cup of coffee and looking at the carrier-based aircraft parked on the deck. Last night, the ground crew had already filled up the fuel for each carrier-based aircraft and loaded the bombs and torpedoes. Marshal Prince Heinrich believes that the decisive battle between the German Navy and the British Navy will start today. Therefore, he asked the ground crew to prepare overnight. On another aircraft carrier, the situation is similar. All carrier-based aircraft are ready to take off. Marshal, the flagship's order. A staff officer reported to Marshal Prince Heinrich. There was uncontrollable excitement on his face. It seems that this is good news. Prince Marshal Heinrich said. Yes, Your Excellency the Marshal. The flagship ordered us to get ready to take off the carrier-based aircraft. An hour later, the carrier-based aircraft began to take off. The enemy is about 150 kilometers south of us. There are 36 ships, capital ships, not only British capital ships, but also French and Italian. The staff officer said excitedly, 36. ships? The French and Italians have also joined in, more than we expected. However, this is also our chance. There are so many enemy battleships, it depends on whether we can eat them how much. Tell the flagship that we are ready. Marshal Prince Heinrich was also excited. According to the time required for the attack, the aircraft carrier formation can launch a maximum of 2 rounds of attacks. There are a total of 96 carrier-based aircraft. After deducting fighter jets, a total of 144 sorties can be carried out. If you're lucky, you should be able to sink about 10 of the enemy's capital ships, then there should be no problem. This is already a huge victory for the aircraft carrier formation. If the aircraft carrier formation can continue to attack, when the main fleet of one's own side starts a decisive battle with the enemy, then their battle results will be further improved. Time passed bit by bit, and the 2 aircraft carriers of the German Navy were waiting for the order to attack. Everyone seems to have seen that a lot of military exploits will soon be obtained. On the battleship Bavaria, the flagship of the German Navy, Admiral Reinhard Scheer and others are also conducting the final demonstration of the tactics. My opinion is that after the aircraft carrier formation launches 2 rounds of attacks, the main fleet will attack and engage in a decisive battle with the Allied powers fleet. With the attack power of the aircraft carrier formation, after 2 rounds of attacks, the Allied powers fleet will pay at least 5 capital ships to be sunk the price. In this case, we will gain a further advantage. Lieutenant General Hipper said. Even after the decisive battle between our main fleet and the fleet of the Allied powers, the aircraft carrier formation can continue to attack. When they drop bombs and torpedoes, they only need to avoid our warships. Of course, the prerequisite is that the pilots must be responsible. The body can bear it. Lieutenant General Spelly said. After all, flying a plane to fight is undoubtedly extremely exhausting of physical strength and energy. 2 rounds of attacks are enough to exhaust the pilots. But it's not out of the question to launch a 3rd attack if you take a break. Admiral Reinhard Scheer nodded. That's it. Let the aircraft carrier formation launch 2 rounds of attacks first, and if there is room left, launch a 3rd round of attacks. Yes, General. Lieutenant General Hipper nodded. When Marshal Prince Heinrich received the telegram from the flagship, he was very satisfied. Although, launching multiple rounds of attacks in a row will make the pilots very tired. But as long as you pay attention to rest, it is not. This also means that in this battle, the aircraft carrier formation can freely attack. They will once again establish a victory for the German Navy in this battle. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Marshal Prince Heinrich issued an order for the carrier-based aircraft to take off. A carrier-based aircraft took off almost simultaneously on the aircraft carrier Pioneer and the aircraft carrier Victory. The other carrier-based aircraft also took off one after another. Chapter 613, Horror. When an aircraft carrier takes off a carrier-based aircraft, the fighter jets are the first to take off. Fighter aircraft are the lightest and require the shortest runways to take off. Bombers and torpedo planes followed in turn. The plane that takes off first will not fly away immediately, but wait in circles over the aircraft carrier. After all the carrier-based aircraft have taken off and completed the air formation, they will fly away from the aircraft carrier and start the attack mission. One after another, carrier-based aircraft took off from the aircraft carriers Pioneer and Victory. The dense fleet of aircraft hovering over the aircraft carrier, such a scene is undoubtedly very shocking. When the last carrier-based aircraft takes off and completes formation, the fleet flew to the south in a mighty manner. May God bless these lads. Prince Marshal Heinrich murmured to God. He not only hopes that these carrier-based aircraft can sink as many British warships as possible during the battle, but also hopes that they can come back safely. Training a carrier-based aircraft pilot is not so easy. It can be said that every carrier-based pilot is a treasure of the German Navy. In the last naval battle, because the British fleet had no anti-aircraft weapons at all, the pilots could drop bombs calmly without worrying that they would be shot down. However, this time is different. The British, who had suffered enough last time, installed a lot of anti-aircraft guns and anti-aircraft machine guns on the battleship. It is undoubtedly very difficult for a carrier-based aircraft to launch an attack easily and then evacuate safely. Of course, where there is war, there will be death, which is unavoidable. The only thing that can be done is probably to win the war at the least cost. This is what the German Navy has been working on. When the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft began to go south, the Allied fleet was also ready for battle. Their seaplanes spotted the German Navy's high seas fleet to the north of the fleet. The Germans have already arrived, and they are less than 60 kilometers away from us. At the current speed, we will meet in 2 hours at most. The survival of the British Empire depends on this battle. John J. Admiral Rico said. Lieutenant General David Beatty nodded. No matter what words are used to describe the importance of this battle to the British Empire, it is not an exaggeration at all. It can be said that now is the critical moment of life and death. This time, the Germans are also allowed 23 battleships, 11 battle cruisers, a total of 34 capital ships. We only have 2 more capital ships than them. If the previous plan can be successful, completely defeat the Germans, how wonderful it would be if we had a battle cruiser formation. In this way, we will have a greater chance of winning in this battle. Lieutenant General David Beatty sighed. Yes. But unfortunately, our plan did not succeed. The Germans are no longer as bold as before. It is no wonder that they now have the advantage in this war. The German Navy is even more, it has replaced the Royal Navy and has become the overlord of the sea. Under such circumstances, they will naturally be more cautious. Admiral John Jellicoe said. Wasn't he equally cautious when he commanded the Grand Fleet in order to defend the supremacy of the British Empire when the Royal Navy was still in its heyday? There is no way. After all, each of their orders is related to the fate of the Empire. It's useless to say these things now. We must prepare for a decisive battle with the Germans. This time, if we lose again, we will never have another chance. Therefore, we must win this battle, said Admiral John Jellicoe. David Beatty Lieutenant General nodded heavily. Indeed, in order to make up enough battleships capable of confronting the German Navy, they have exhausted all means. Now in the world, there are no countries that still have advanced capital ships, except for Japan in the east. Therefore, if Britain loses this naval battle, they will never have a chance to come back. Send a telegram to General Lame and General Paul that the battle will start in 2 hours. This time, we have no way out. If we want to win, we must work hard. Admiral John Jellicoe said. Yes, General. Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul have returned to their respective flagships. In this naval battle, in order to win, they must cooperate closely. It is undoubtedly the most appropriate for the 2 of them to command their respective fleets. The capital ships of the entire Allied fleet were divided into 5 divisions. Among them, the 12 battleships purchased from the United States under the command of Vice Admiral Martin were divided into the 1st Battleship Division and the 2nd Battleship Division, including the Tiger battlecruiser, formed the 3rd Battleship Squadron. The 10 capital ships of the French Navy formed the 4th Battleship Squadron. 6 battleships of the Italian Navy formed the 5th Battleship Squadron. Time passed by every minute and every second, and the officers and soldiers of the United Fleet of the Allied powers at this moment did not expect that the battle had already begun. The carrier-based aircraft unit of the German Navy is coming. There will be an attack on them soon. At 9 AM, the carrier-based aircraft unit of the German Navy flew over the combined fleet of the Allied powers. Woo! The shrill sirens resounded over the fleet. Admiral John Jellicoe, Lieutenant General David Beatty and others rushed out one after another, looking at the little black spots on the edge of the sky. Using binoculars, they can clearly see the appearance of those small black dots. An airplane with an iron cross, painted on its wings, with bombs or torpedoes hanging under its belly. This made the faces of the 2 of them full of expressions of horror. Damn, German planes. Fighting in the Atlantic, can their planes be dispatched? Admiral John Jellicoe cursed. In the last decisive battle, they suffered enough from the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft. Originally thought that this time fighting in the Atlantic Ocean, the level can avoid this. But I didn't expect that I still encountered a carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy. It seems that the German planes did not take off from the airport on land, but from a ship on the sea. Otherwise, they would never have flown here. Lieutenant General David Beatty's face was at hen. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded, but even if he guessed this now, what's the use? Command the fleet, and prepare for air defense. This time, the Germans must not use these toys to sink our capital ship again. Admiral John Jellicoe said through gritted teeth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614, Attack. The first target of the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft was not the warship on the sea, but the British seaplane. After discovering the attack of the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy, the seaplane originally used to perform reconnaissance missions took the lead in heroically rushing towards the German fleet. Although there are not many of these seaplanes, there are less than 20 of them. At the same time, the performance in all aspects is quite different from that of the German fighters. But what is worthy of admiration is still their courage. Woo! A yellow flare went off into the air. It means that the fighters disperse the enemy's fighters and create conditions for the bombers and torpedo planes to attack. The 24 fighter jets escorted immediately rushed to the British seaplane from high altitude. Da-da-da. The aviation machine guns began to fire, and the bullets hit the body of the British seaplane. The skin was pierced, and the wooden body was directly dismantled. One after another British seaplanes were shot down. In front of the German fighter jets, the British seaplanes looked so cumbersome and fragile. This air battle is completely one-sided. As soon as the battle started, the British seaplanes paid a heavy price, and half of them were shot down. In the ensuing fight, the seaplanes of the British Army were no match. General John Jellicoe and Lieutenant General David Beatty looked at this scene with livid faces. They are all brave boys. It's a pity that we don't have an aircraft with the same performance as the German fighters. Otherwise, they wouldn't have lost so badly. Admiral John Jellicoe said, "Yes, Your Excellency Commander. The Germans are far ahead of us in the aviation industry." Lieutenant General David Beatty sighed. There is no doubt that they are mourning the deaths of those heroic pilots. These pilots are brave people. Knowing that they are invincible, they rushed to fight the Germans to the death. If it weren't for the performance of the aircraft that dragged them down, perhaps the battle would have been another result. But in this world, there are not so many erections and what-ifs. Germany took the lead in investing a lot of money and manpower in the aviation industry, which made them lead the world in this field. It is precisely because of this that the German aircraft can hang the whole world in the war. The sky soon ended. All the seaplanes of the British Army were shot down, and none survived. The entire air battle lasted no more than 10 minutes. It can be said that in front of the German fighter planes, the seaplanes of the British Army are like toddlers. Subsequently, 3 signal flares were fired into the air, which represented an attack on the warships on the sea. The fighter jets that shot down the British seaplane took the lead in attacking. They used aviation machine guns to sweep the deck and air defense positions of the battleship, clearing the way for the subsequent attacks of bombers and torpedo planes. Shoot! Shoot! On the battleship Revenge, the flagship of the British Navy, the air defense commander was roaring loudly. Anti-aircraft guns modified with 1-pound guns and 2-pound guns began to fire wildly. The anti-aircraft machine guns also started firing violently, forming a dense fire net in the sky, in order to avoid being unable to fight back when encountering German fighter planes. In the past 2 months, these capital ships have also installed anti-aircraft firepower while undergoing repairs. But, because there is no actual combat experience, therefore, the arrangement of their anti-aircraft firepower is still relatively messy. Basically, anti-aircraft guns and anti-aircraft machine guns are arranged wherever there is room. This made them deploy a lot of anti-aircraft guns and anti-aircraft machine guns, but they failed to form a complete anti-aircraft firepower network. Da-da-da. A fighter jet passed the battleship Revenge. The aviation machine guns fired wildly, and the dense bullets hit the battleship, shooting out sparks one by one. Puff. The bullet hit the human body, making a frightening sound. The screams became more and more one after another. Aviation machine guns are already very powerful. Once they hit a human body, there is often only one result, which is torn to pieces. When the German fighter jets passed by, the anti-aircraft firepower on the battleship almost chased the German fighter jets. However, their speed was still too slow to hit at all. On the contrary, a huge loophole appeared in their air defense network. 4 bombers attacked from a high altitude. They swooped down obliquely towards the battleship Revenge and dropped bombs when they were only more than 600 meters away from the sea. 4 aerial bombs weighing 250 kilograms hit the battleship Revenge in a parabola. Bomb, dodge, boom, boom. An explosion sounded, and 3 of the 4 bombs fell into the sea. After the explosion, a column of water splashed into the sky, but a bomb hit the battleship Revenge. The weak deck armor couldn't withstand the aerial bombs under the blessing of kinetic energy at all, and was easily penetrated. The bomb exploded inside the battleship, causing a raging fire. Unfortunately, it was not able to hit the vital position. Otherwise, it would be enough for the battleship Revenge to pay a considerable price. When the bombers launched an attack, the torpedo planes did not sit idle. Taking advantage of the battleship Revenge being attracted by the bombers, 4 torpedo attack planes rushed to a place only 500 meters away from the side of the battleship Revenge before dropping the torpedoes. 4 torpedoes hit the sea and sank directly. Then it surfaced again. Then, according to the fixed depth, it rushed to the battleship Revenge. Torpedoes. 4 torpedoes are found on the port side. Evade urgently. A mournful roar sounded. The battleship Revenge immediately began to evade in an emergency, trying to use the bow of the ship to align the direction of the torpedo attack to reduce the area where the bomb was hit. Perhaps the battleship Revenge had better luck. 2 of the 4 torpedoes were directly missed. The other one, because of a problem with the fixed depth, went directly under the belly of the Revenge. The last one, although it hit the waterline armor of the battleship Revenge, but it was not known what went wrong and there was no explosion. This spared the battleship Revenge. Your Excellency, Commander, we hid. 1 torpedo passed through our battleship, and the other torpedo hit, but it didn't explode. Lieutenant General David Beatty was delighted. God bless. Admiral John Jellicoe said. However, the worry in his eyes did not diminish at all. German planes are still attacking. Although the British warships began to fight back, however, it didn't have much effect. It seems that the aircraft carrier is the protagonist of the future naval battle. Admiral John Jellicoe couldn't help express such emotion. Chapter 615, Soft Persimmons. Most of the warships of the British Navy are equipped with anti-aircraft firepower. When facing the attack of the German carrier-based aircraft, at least there is still a little bit of power to fight back. However, the warships of France and Italy are not equipped with anti-aircraft firepower at all. They could only watch helplessly as the German carrier-based aircraft launched an attack. Damn the British, they really can't believe it. Why didn't they remind us in advance to equip anti-aircraft weapons? Admiral Lane roared angrily. Equally angry was Admiral Paul of the Royal Italian Navy. The generals of the kingdoms of France and Italy were frightened. This is the first time they have seen a fighter plane attack a surface fighter plane, and it still poses such a strong threat. In the minds of these people, battles at sea should be bombarded with naval guns until one of the warships is sunk. When did naval warfare evolve into this? For the first time, these generals felt that they seemed a little out of date. Compared with the most powerful navy in the world, the gap between them is not only in the strength of both sides, but also in the concept of combat. The carrier-based air force of the German army also found the capital ships of France and Italy, and it seems that they have no anti-aircraft weapons. Immediately, these carrier-based planes rushed towards these battleships like sharks smelling blood. After all, it is the same, whether it is sinking the battleships of the British or the battleships of the French and Italians. As long as these battleships are sunk, the German Navy will be able to occupy a greater advantage in the next battle of battleships. So, almost all the remaining carrier-based aircraft with bombs and torpedoes rushed towards the French Navy and the Italian Navy. Your Excellency, the German planes have focused on attacking the French and Italians. Lieutenant General David Beatty looked worried. Damn it, the warships of the French and Italians don't have anti-aircraft weapons at all. Those Germans really know how to pick their opponents. Admiral John Jellicoe was also very helpless. He was relieved that German planes attacked the French and Italian navies. In this case, the strength of the British Navy will not be greatly weakened. However, once the French Navy and the Italian Navy have paid heavy losses and are severely weakened, this is also very detrimental to the next battle. I hope the French and Italians can survive the German attack. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. "Oh my god. The Germans are coming." Seeing the German carrier-based aircraft rushing towards their warship, Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul's expressions became very ugly. Although there was no anti-aircraft firepower on the French and Italian warships, the German carrier-based aircraft pilots still launched the attack according to standard tactics. The fighters attacked first, followed by the cover bombers and torpedo attack aircraft. A fighter jet passed the French Navy's battleship Jean Bart. Aviation machine guns began to fire. The dense bullets swept across the deck of the battleship like pouring rain. Immediately, the screams of the sailors on the battleship Jean Bart rang out one after another. Countless French sailors fell to the ground screaming, and many of them were torn to pieces by the bullets of the aviation machine gun. The rest of the people hurriedly hid in the cabin of the battleship. There was deep fear in everyone's eyes, and it was obvious that they were terribly frightened. Immediately after the fighters launched the attack, the 4 bombers began to dive from a high altitude and only dropped their bombs when they dived to a height of only 600 meters above the sea. 4 heavy bombs drew a parabola and smashed into the battleship Jean Bart. Evasion. Urgent evasion. The captain of the battleship Jean Bart roared loudly. The huge warship with a displacement of more than 25,000 tons rushed left and right like a wild bull. 4 bombs, 2 of which fell into the sea, did not cause any impact on the battleship Jean Bart. However, the other 2 bombs successfully hit the target. A bomb hit the port side of the battleship Jean Bart, blowing away a 138mm secondary gun, and detonated a bunch of explosions at the same time, causing a raging fire on the port side of the battleship. Another bomb directly hit the bow of the ship, pierced through the 70mm thick deck armor, and exploded inside the battleship, causing a raging fire. Such injuries are nothing to a huge battleship. However, such an attack method made the French sailors on the battleship scared out of their wits. It was the first time they encountered such an enemy. Apart from avoiding, they have no other way. Under such circumstances, the difficulty of resisting the German attack can be imagined. Torpedoes. 4 torpedoes were found on the starboard side. The sailors on the starboard side shouted in horror after seeing the 4 incoming torpedoes. This was dropped by 4 torpedo attack planes less than 500 meters away from the battleship Jean Bart. The 4 torpedoes, like 4 sharks, quickly rushed towards the battleship Jean Bart. Turn, emergency turn. The chief navigator, with red eyes, controls the rudder himself. However, for a huge battleship with a length of 166 meters and a displacement of more than 25,000 tons, it would take at least 2 minutes to complete its turn. This made it impossible for them to escape the torpedoes launched by the German carrier-based aircraft. Of the 4 torpedoes, except for the first one that missed, the remaining 3 all scored hits. 1 torpedo hit the bow, and the other 2 hit the midship. Although, the waterline armor of the battleship Jean Bart is as thick as 270mm, but there is still no warhead that can withstand the explosion of a 450mm medium-sized torpedo. Boom. 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 The violent explosion exploded below the waterline on the starboard side of the battleship Jean Bart. The huge power directly tore the waterline armor and tore several large holes in the hull. Seawater began to pour into the battleship from these big openings crazily. The damage control personnel immediately plugged the leak. They all knew very well that if these loopholes could not be plugged, then the battleship Jean Bart would be finished. It will also be finished, as well as the sailors on these battleships. Despite their best efforts, their efforts inevitably ended in failure. Chapter 616. Sink. Your Excellency, Captain, the hull is too big to be blocked at all. However, if the watertight compartment is closed, too much water will enter, causing the battleship to tilt. The officer in charge of damage control asked Jean. The captain of the battleship HMS Walter reported. Then what should we do? The captain was also at a loss. Your Excellency, we can inject water to the port side. In this way, we can barely maintain the balance of the battleship. However, if it is attacked again, the battleship may only sink. The officer reported. Then why are you still standing there? Feel free to close the watertight compartment, and then fill the port side with water. The captain roared loudly. A large amount of seawater poured into the battleship Jean Bart, causing the hull to tilt. In order to maintain the balance of the battleship, they had to flood the starboard side. However, this caused more and more water to enter the battleship, even exceeding the reserve buoyancy of the battleship. When the officers on the battleship Jane Barter discovered that the battleship was sinking, they realized this. Bastard. You can't fill in any more water, the battleship is going to sink. Immediately use the motor to pump out the seawater. An officer shouted loudly. But at this moment, the command on the battleship Jane Barter has already appeared in chaos. When they saw that the battleship was about to sink, everyone wanted to escape, but no one carried out the order at all. Especially when even the captain took the lead in escaping from the battleship. It meant that the battleship was completely finished. Soon, the deck of the battleship Jane Barter was submerged under the water. A few minutes later, the warship with a displacement of more than 20,000 tons sank into the sea. This also became the first battleship lost by the United Fleet in this naval battle. The more than 1,100 French naval officers and soldiers on the battleship, except for a very small number, all sank into the sea with the battleship and failed to escape. General, the Jane Barter has sunk. The adjutant reported to Admiral Lane. Damn. Admiral Lane couldn't help cursing. Before the real battle started, they had already lost a battleship. Then, the next battle will definitely be even more unfavorable to them. The attack of the German carrier-based aircraft continues. Not only the battleships of the French Navy were attacked, but also the battleships of the Italian Navy. The battleship Dante is a battleship with a displacement of less than 22,000 tons. However, the firepower of this battleship is very powerful, equipped with 4 triple-mounted 305mm main guns. But it is a pity that the battleship Dante has no chance to show its powerful combat effectiveness in fierce naval battles. Now he is under the siege of the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft. Boom. 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 The bomb fell to the surface of the sea, splashing a column of water that soared into the sky. Other bombs fell directly on the battleship. The weak deck armor could not resist the bombs falling from the sky at all, and was directly penetrated. The flames spread on the battleship, and the damage control personnel, wearing gas masks, dragged the faucet and rushed towards the fire. The performance of the Italian army is very bad. However, the performance of their navy is not bad. It's a pity that the strength gap between the two sides is too great. Before the battleship duel between the two sides has begun, they will be sunk. Torpedo. Found a torpedo. Avoid it. The battleship Dante with a maximum speed of 22 knots began an emergency turn. However, it was still impossible to avoid the torpedo. 2 torpedoes hit the battleship Dante. A torpedo hit the stern of the ship and directly blew up the propeller at the tail, making it impossible for the battleship to move forward. The other torpedo tore a big hole below the waterline of the warship's bow. Seawater is frantically pouring into the battleship. Suffering this heavy damage, the battleship Dante floated on the sea like a dead fish and became the target of the German carrier-based aircraft attack. 4 torpedo attack aircraft once again launched an attack on the battleship Dante. When the battleship Dante was getting slower and slower, and finally almost stationary on the sea, 4 torpedo attack planes immediately launched an attack. All 4 torpedoes hit the battleship Dante. The waterline armor with a thickness of only 254mm was torn apart in front of the 450mm medium-sized torpedo like paper paste. Such a heavy blow is undoubtedly fatal to a battleship with a displacement of only more than 20,000 tons. In less than 5 minutes, the battleship Dante sank into the sea. This is already the second battleship sunk by the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft. What's worse, the battle is still going on. The German Navy's carrier-based aircraft continued to attack French and Italian warships. These fighters completely regarded the fleets of the two countries as soft persimmons, and they manipulated them at will. God, why did we participate in this war? Why did we betray the Allies? Admiral Paul looked remorseful. At the beginning, the Kingdom of Italy was a member of the Allies, but their king and Prime Minister were obsessed with ghosts and chose to betray the Allies and join the Allies to fight. As a result, not only did this not bring them victory, but it also made them about to face a heavy blow. It's a pity that it's useless to talk about it now. It is already impossible for them who have boarded the thief ship of the Allied powers to get off the ship. Neither Germany nor Austria-Hungary will spare the Kingdom of Italy. Therefore, they will definitely defeat the Kingdom of Italy and then take the opportunity to slaughter the Kingdom of Italy. As a soldier of the Kingdom of Italy, the only thing Admiral Paul can do is to lead his own fleet and fight desperately. In that case, it may be possible to exchange for a glimmer of life for the Kingdom of Italy. But now it seems that the possibility of this is too small. The carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy are too powerful. Before the capital ships of the two sides began to confront each other, they began to pay heavy losses. The French Navy and Italian Navy, under the siege of the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft, are in danger. Warships are constantly being hit by torpedoes or bombs. Although so far, only 2 battleships have been sunk. However, no one knows how many battleships will be sunk in the next battle. Damn it, the Germans are attacking the French and Italians recklessly. Now they have sunk 2 battleships. Compared with the German Navy, we will not only have no advantage, but will be at a disadvantage. John J. Admiral Licker was worried. Chapter 617, Aircraft Carrier Era. General, should we send our battleships to reinforce the French and Italian navies? If the Germans are allowed to sink their battleships, the next decisive battle will probably be very unfavorable to us. Lieutenant General David Beatty suggested road. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded. Okay, let's send some small and medium-sized warships there. However, our own air defense must be strengthened. Although, the navies of the 3 countries formed a joint fleet, Admiral John Jellicoe, as the commander of the United Fleet, should naturally be fair. But don't forget that Admiral John Jellicoe was also British. Therefore, he will involuntarily put the interests of the Royal Navy first. Even though the British Navy sent some small and medium-sized warships to help the French Navy and the Italian Navy in air defense. However, the anti-aircraft firepower installed on these small and medium-sized warships is not much. Using it scattered in this way will not have any effect at all. The carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy can easily seize the loopholes and launch attacks on the capital ships of the French Navy and the Italian Navy. The Paris battleship, as the 3rd ship of the Guber-class battleship, became the 2nd battleship sunk among the capital ships of the French Navy. Under the siege of the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft, the battleship suffered 4 torpedoes and 2 bombs. After the battleship Paris, the battleship Provence followed in his footsteps. As a result, the French Navy lost 3 battleships in this battle. After the Italian Navy lost the battleship Dante, the battleship Giulio Cesare was also sunk. After being hit by 5 torpedoes, lost 2 warships in this battle. At this time, the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy had dropped all the bombs and torpedoes and had to return. Although, they still have something to say. But without bombs and torpedoes, they can't just fly planes to hit enemy ships, right? After returning directly to the aircraft carrier, fuel was refilled, bombs and torpedoes were added, and the attack could be continued. During this wave of attacks, they have already sunk 5 battleships of the United Fleet. The results of such a battle are undoubtedly very fruitful. It directly reduced the number of capital ships of the United Fleet from 36 to 31. 3 fewer than the 34 ships of the German Navy. This makes them have no advantage at all in terms of the number of capital ships. In the next battle, if you want to defeat the German Navy and win, it will be even more difficult. Admiral John Jellicoe looked at the German fighter planes in the distance. His face was so gloomy that water dripped out. Your Excellency, Commander, the loss is heavy. After losing 5 battleships, can we still defeat the Germans in the next duel? Lieutenant General David Beatty shook his head and smiled dryly. Now he is no longer as confident as before. I don't know either. Maybe we shouldn't have fought the Germans at all. Admiral John Jellicoe said. There is no doubt that in this decisive battle, the possibility of the British Navy's failure has become very high. Your Excellency, even if we want to give up now, it is unlikely. The German main fleet is not far away from us. If we retreat, they will definitely pursue it with all their strength. At that time, we will have to retreat to Ireland, go to sea. In this case, although the main force of the United Fleet can be kept, in fact, this battle has been lost. France and Italy will not last long. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. Once they fail to win this battle, the defeat of France and Italy will be inevitable. At that time, only Britain will be left alone to fight against Germany. The United Kingdom now has no such strength at all. No, so, no matter what, this battle must continue. We must do our best to defeat the Germans. Only in that way, our country will have a chance of survival. John Jellicoe entered will say. The combined fleet of the Allied powers was attacked by this wave of German carrier-based aircraft and suffered heavy losses. The morale of the fleet is about to drop to freezing point. Especially the French Navy and the Italian Navy. Their fighting will was not as good as the British Navy. It is God's blessing that they did not collapse after suffering heavy losses. If there is another wave of such attacks from the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft, no one dares to explode. What will happen? For the German Navy, Admiral Reinhard Scheer, Lieutenant Admiral Hipper, and Lieutenant Admiral Spiel laughed after receiving the news that the carrier-based aircraft forces had sunk 5 battleships of the Allied fleet. Your Excellency, Commander, they only have 31 battleships left, 3 less than us. There will be no suspense in the next decisive battle, and we will definitely defeat them completely. Lieutenant General Spelly said confidently. Admiral Reinhard Scheer nodded. The aircraft carrier's attack has only completed one wave. Soon, they will start the second wave of strikes. I hope their attack in this round among them, more enemy ships can be sunk. In this case, our chances of winning will be even greater. I really didn't expect that the carrier-based aircraft carried by the aircraft carrier would be so powerful. It seems that it is inevitable that the aircraft carrier and carrier-based aircraft will replace battleships and battle cruisers and become the protagonists of future naval battles. Pair Lieutenant General Earthside. Yes, even in certain specific battlefield environments, battleships and battle cruisers can still play a certain role. However, there is no doubt that the main force of naval warfare will soon become an aircraft carrier. Spies-Hahn will also say, this is undoubtedly a good thing for the Imperial Navy. After all, we are far ahead of other countries in terms of aircraft carriers. In addition to the 2 Pioneer-class aircraft carriers, the subsequent 4 William the Great-class aircraft carriers of Varied will be in service soon. By then, the strength of the Imperial Navy will be further improved, said Admiral Reinhard Scheer. Although the strength of the German Navy is now the number 1 in the world, this does not mean that there is no room for improvement in their strength. On the contrary, after more aircraft carriers are in service, the strength of the German Navy will be continuously improved. It will undoubtedly be more difficult for other countries to challenge Germany. Aircraft carriers have become the protagonists in naval battles. With the continuous victory of the German Navy's aircraft carriers, it has become an irreversible trend. Chapter 618, Frightened. Nice job, guys. The aircraft carrier Pioneer and the aircraft carrier Victory are undergoing intense carrier-based aircraft landing. After dropping the bombs and torpedoes, those carrier-based aircraft returned from the battlefield one after another. After they land on the deck of the aircraft carrier, they will be sent to the hangar below the deck by elevator. Carry out fuel refueling and ammunition loading, and get ready to attack again. At the same time, pilots can also use this time to simply take a break, eat something, and solve their physical problems. Get ready for the next wave of attack. During the first round of the attack, the carrier-based planes of the 2 aircraft carriers sank 5 battleships of the Allied fleet, which satisfied Marshal Prince Heinrich very much. He hoped that in the second round of attack, the carrier-based aircraft could sink so many battleships again. In this case, a total of 10 battleships could be sunk in 2 rounds of attacks. After that, the carrier aircraft will suspend the attack. After 2 rounds of attacks, the pilots were very tired. Let them rest for a while, and then launch a 3rd round of offense in the afternoon. At that time, it may be possible to achieve certain results. At 10:30 in the morning, all carrier-based aircraft took off from the aircraft carrier again. They will launch a 2nd round of attacks on the combined fleet of the Allies. In the first round of attacks, a total of 3 carrier-based aircraft were lost, including 2 bombers and a torpedo aircraft. Except that the torpedo plane was shot down by the enemy's anti-aircraft artillery fire. The other 2 bombers were unable to pull up in time after the bombing was completed, and changed out of the dive course, so that they hit the warships of the United Fleet of the Allies. The loss of 3 carrier-based aircraft made Marshal Prince Heinrich very distressed. However, compared to the results they obtained, such a loss is nothing at all. After all, if a battleship is sunk casually, there will be thousands of casualties. The second round of attacks by the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft began in the desperate eyes of the French Navy and the Italian Navy. The targets of their attacks are still the French Navy and the Italian Navy. Even if the British Navy dispatched some small and medium-sized warships equipped with anti-aircraft firepower to support them. However, this still has no effect on resisting the attack of the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft. At most, it will cause the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft to pay some casualties. In the second round of attacks, the first to be sunk was the battleship Caudillo of the Italian Navy. This is the most powerful battleship in service with the Italian Navy. The full load displacement is 25,000 tons, but it is equipped with 3 triple-mounted 305mm main guns and 2 double-mounted 305mm main guns. It can be said that the firepower has been brought to the extreme. However, this battleship was also very unlucky. Before its powerful firepower had time to show itself, it was sunk by the German carrier-based aircraft. After that, the battleship Lorraine of the French Navy was also sunk. An aerial bomb penetrated the deck armor near the turret. What's more, after penetrating the deck armor, the bomb penetrated the ammunition depot and exploded inside the ammunition depot. At the same time, hundreds of 340mm shells in the ammunition depot were detonated. After these shells exploded, they directly blew the bow of the battleship Lorraine to pieces. Under such circumstances, a large amount of seawater poured into the battleship, causing the battleship to quickly sink into the sea with the bow facing down and the stern facing up. The attack targets of the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy have always been the capital ships of the French Navy and the Italian Navy, as if they turned a blind eye to the capital ships of the British Navy. The capital ships of the British Navy are all equipped with anti-aircraft weapons. Even the battleships purchased from the United States have been equipped with anti-aircraft weapons. In order to reduce unnecessary casualties, they took the French Navy and Italian Navy as the first choice for attack. As for the capital ships of the British Navy, leave them to the capital ships of the German Navy. Anyway, it is impossible for the carrier-based aircraft to sink all the capital ships of the Allied fleet, so we still have to save some for the capital fleet. In this case, the capital ship of the British Navy has become the best target. Next, the battleship France of the French Navy and the battleship Da Vinci of the Italian Navy were also sunk. The losses of the two navies further increased. In addition, during the battle, the battleship Arkansas of the British Navy was also sunk. This battleship was severely damaged in the fierce battle with the 3 Blücher-class battle cruisers of the German Navy yesterday. This time, several torpedo attack planes stared at him. After being hit by 5 torpedoes, the battleship with a displacement of more than 27,000 tons sank into the sea. After sinking 5 battleships of the Allied fleet, the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy finished dropping all the bombs and torpedoes and had to return. However, they sank 10 battleships of the Allied fleet in 2 rounds of attack. This is undoubtedly a serious injury to the united fleet of the Allied powers. Although, there are still 26 battleships left in the combined fleet of the Allied powers. However, compared with the 34 capital ships of the German Navy, they are undoubtedly at a serious disadvantage in terms of the number of capital ships. What's more, no one is sure whether the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft will launch a 3rd round of attacks. At that time, how many warships will they have to lose? We've lost half our battleships, but we haven't even seen the face of the German warships. This can't go on. This battle can't go on like this. We must retreat. Otherwise, the German planes alone would have sunk all our warships. Admiral Lane roared angrily. The French Navy has only 10 battleships in total, and now it has lost 5. This is definitely a heavy blow to the French Navy. Admiral Lane no longer had the courage to continue fighting. He believes that, if the fight continues, there will only be one result, which is to be completely sunk. Yes, the Germans are too powerful. They are enough to sink all our warships with their planes alone. There is no need to fight this battle anymore. Let's retreat first, while their planes have just left. Admiral Paul also said. The Italian Navy lost 4 battleships, but they only had 6 battleships in total. 2/3 were sunk by the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy. How could they still have the courage to fight? The sailors were even more frightened, wishing they could retreat now. Chapter 619, The Main Showdown. The faces of Admiral John Jellicoe and Lieutenant General David Beatty were so gloomy that they could almost drip water. Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul actually wanted to retreat. How could this work? Although the French Navy has 5 battleships left, and the Italian Navy has only 2 battleships left, this is also an indispensable and important support for the British Navy. If the French and Italian navies retreat, the British Navy will only have 20 battleships left. Facing the 34 capital ships of the German Navy, you can imagine what will happen with your toes. General Lame, General Paul. Although the German aircraft attack caused us a lot of losses, however, this battle has just begun, and we have not been defeated. If we are lucky, we may not have no chance to defeat the Germans. Yes, this is the last chance for our country, and we must not let it go. If we retreat, it means that we have lost this battle. At that time, we can only lose this war. It's gone. Lieutenant General David Beatty said, "Everyone, once we lose this war, the Germans will surely destroy our country." Admiral John Jellicoe also said. Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul fell silent immediately. Indeed, the reason why their government will send them to join this battle is to hope to seize this opportunity to defeat the Germans and prevent the country from failing in this war. But now, the strength shown by the Germans in naval battles is really too strong. Let them lose confidence in victory. The Germans are strong. There is no doubt about it. Otherwise, they would not have cost the Royal Navy so much. But if we fear the Germans because of this, then there is no need to fight this battle. I believe that, although the Germans are powerful, their warships can also be sunk. Just like we sank the German battlecruiser Blucher before. Although our current strength is stronger than that of the Germans, weak. But I believe that God will bless us. We still have a great chance of winning this battle. Admiral John Jellicoe continued. Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul both nodded. Although the worries in their hearts have not dissipated, they know that there is no way out now. For their country, they must fight on. If it fails, France and Italy will be completely finished. Woo. Suddenly, the shrill siren sounded shrill. Admiral John Jellicoe and others all changed their expressions. It seems that, even if you want to retreat, it's too late. The main German fleet has arrived, so get ready to fight. Admiral John Jellicoe said. Admiral Lame and Admiral Paul nodded, left the battleship Revenge, and took a transport boat to their flagship, to prepare for the battle. After the second round of strikes by the German Navy's carrier-based aircraft, the main force of the German Navy's high seas fleet accelerated southward, preparing for the final confrontation with the Allied fleet. The carrier-based air force took care of the 10 capital ships of the Allied fleet. This is already a great help to the high seas fleet. It is absolutely certain that they will use 38 capital ships to deal with the remaining 26 capital ships of the Allied Powers United Fleet. This will be our last duel with the British. If we win this time, the British will have no chance of a comeback. Admiral Reinhard Scheer said. Yes, Your Excellency Commander. However, it is really not easy to take the position of sea supremacy from the British. Lieutenant General Hipper said. In order to defeat the Royal Navy, the German Navy and the British fought several large-scale naval battles alone. Fortunately, the strength of the German Navy can stand the test, and every time it ends in victory. This eventually allowed the German Navy to replace the British Navy as the supremacy of the sea. But obviously, even at this time, the British have not given up, and are still stubbornly resisting. No matter how many times the British fight, we will defeat them. As long as we win every time, the British will lose. Lieutenant General Spee said. Admiral Reinhard Scheer and Lieutenant General Hipper couldn't help laughing. Subsequently, Lieutenant General Spee returned to command the battle on his flagship Mackensen battlecruiser. Usually, Lieutenant General Spee is the commander of the breaking fleet. During the decisive battle at sea, he was in charge of commanding the battlecruiser formation of the German Navy. After the sinking of the battlecruiser Blucher, although there were only 11 battlecruisers left in the German Navy, however, their strength has not suffered much loss. 11 battlecruisers, divided into 2 battlecruiser squadrons. The 23 battleships were divided into 4 battleship squadrons. Sent a telegram to General Spee, asking him to lead the battlecruiser formation and go around behind the British. On the one hand, flanking the British. On the other hand, prevent them from escaping. Admiral Reinhard Scheer ordered rowed. He hopes that in this decisive battle, not only will he win, but he will also wipe out all the enemy's capital ships in one fell swoop. In this case, the British would no longer be able to threaten the German Navy. Yes, Your Excellency Commander. Lieutenant General Hipper nodded. By the way, Your Excellency, Commander, His Royal Highness informed us that the pilots need to take a break, and they will be able to launch the third round of attacks in about 2 hours. Lieutenant General Hipper said. Admiral Reinhard Scheer nodded. No problem. 2 hours later, the carrier-based aircraft force will attack again, which will almost help us defeat the British in one fell swoop. The high seas fleet of the German Navy immediately took action, and the 11 battle cruisers began to accelerate, preparing to circle around the Allied fleet. The remaining 23 battleships continued to approach south, forcing the United Fleet to fight decisively. Damn the Germans, they want to wipe us out. Admiral John Jellicoe immediately understood the intention of the German Navy. This is not good news for the United Fleet. Once defeated, they may not have many warships to escape. Order. The ships, prepare to fight. Since the Germans want to outflank our rear, let's defeat their main force first. Before their battle cruisers encircle them, defeat them first. In this case, we will win. Admiral John Jellicoe ordered. Chapter 620. The Great War begins. Order the 1st Battleship Squadron and the 2nd Battleship Squadron to form a battle line, and the 3rd Battleship Squadron and the 4th Battleship Squadron to form a battle line. Admiral Reinhard Scheer ordered. There are 23 battleships in the High Seas Fleet. If they all form a battle line, the battle line will be too long. The flagship in front of the battle line has no idea what happened behind it. Therefore, it is more appropriate to form 2 battle lines. Among the 2 battle lines, the first battle line is naturally the main force. There are 12 battleships, including 5 Bavaria-class battleships, 5 King-class battleships and 2 Caesar-class battleships. The second battle line is composed of 3 Caesar-class battleships, 4 Helgoland-class battleships and 4 Nassau-class battleships. Admiral John Jellicoe is also conducting combat deployments on the battleship Revenge, the flagship of the combined fleet. The Germans are divided into 2 lines of battle, so let us do as they wish. Let General Martin lead his 11 battleships against the German line of 11 battleships. The remaining 15 main ships ship another line of battle against the Germans. Our time is running out, and we must defeat the German battle cruisers before they come back. Otherwise, we will be at an absolute disadvantage. John. Admiral Jellicoe ordered. Lieutenant General David Beatty nodded. There was no objection to the arrangement of Admiral John Jellicoe. Admiral John Jellicoe's intention was undoubtedly to assemble 15 battleships and first defeat the German Navy's battle line consisting of 12 battleships. In this battle, they have the advantage of 3 battleships. If you can win, then the next battle will be much easier to fight. But the prerequisite is that they must be able to win. The first battle line of the German Navy, although there are only 12 battleships, they are all the most advanced and powerful battleships of the German Navy. The Bavaria-class battleship and the King-class battleship are both powerful battleships with thick armor and equipped with 380mm main guns. It is no exaggeration to say that it is the most powerful battleship in the world. 2 Caesar-class battleships, although equipped with 343mm main guns. However, the 343mm main gun with 50 times the caliber still has a very powerful armor-piercing ability. Both sides wanted to have this duel, so the battle began naturally. The first battle line of the German Navy sailed southeast, and the second battle line sailed southwest. This made this naval battle divided into 2 battlefields. Dozens of battleships on both sides can also be deployed. The United Fleet of the Allied powers followed closely. In terms of time, in order to defeat the German Navy before the battle cruisers of the German Navy arrived on the battlefield, the combined fleet of the Allied powers couldn't wait to have a duel. Half an hour later, the battle started. The first battle line of the British Navy took the lead in shelling. The 15 battleships undoubtedly have a great advantage in terms of number compared to the 12 battleships of the German Navy's first battle line. Boom. 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 The 4 twin-mounted 381mm main guns of the battleship Revenge fired first. Immediately afterwards, the battleships Resolution, Queen Elizabeth, Warspite, Warrior, Tiger, Giant and Intrepid also opened fire. The battleships Normandy, Gascony, Faudelin, Brittany and Goober of the French Navy, André, the battleship Duilio and the Earl of Cavor also started firing. Admiral John Jellicoe obviously knew how powerful the German Navy's Bavaria-class battleships and King-class battleships were. Therefore, he placed the breakthrough on the two Caesar-class battleships behind the battle line. The 5 battleships of the French Navy are located at the end of the battle line. They were ordered to attack with all their strength and sink the 2 battleships of the German Navy. As for the other German battleships, the other battleships in the battle line would hold up. This mission made Admiral Lane very satisfied. In his opinion, there should be no problem in sinking 5 battleships of the French Navy and sinking 2 battleships of the German Navy. Point under the command of Admiral Lane. The 3 battleships of the Normandy class attacked the battleship King Albert of the German Navy, which was the second to last battleship in the battle line, and the remaining battleships Bretagne and Goober the battleship HMS. Then besieged the battleship Luitpold Regent, which was at the end of the battle line. Boom. 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 The shells continued to fall into the sea, splashing jets of water into the sky. On the battleship Bavaria, the flagship of the German Navy, Admiral Reinhard Scheer did not change his face. Lieutenant General Hipper had gone to command the second battle line. HMPH. The British put their hope of victory on us. Does he really think that with those asterisk battleships, he can defeat us? Order the ships and start firing. Let the British and French look at the Italians. The warships of the German Empire are the most powerful in the world. Admiral Reinhard Scheer snorted coldly. The United Fleet is on this battle line, although it has the numerical advantage of 3 battleships. However, their disadvantages are not small. Battleships like the Giant and the Dreadnought are basically used to recharge. Its 305mm main gun with 45 times the caliber is nothing to the thick armor of the German Navy's King-class battleship. It is simply impossible to penetrate the armor of the King-class battleship. Admiral Reinhard Scheer is fully convinced that the combined fleet has sunk the Giant before sinking the battleships King Albert and King Regent of the German Navy, and the battleship Dreadnought. The 380mm main gun of the King-class battleship can easily tear their armor to shreds. At this moment, the distance between the 2 battle lines is 15 kilometers. The German Navy deliberately kept this distance because the main of guns their battleships are all large caliber main guns. At this distance, performance can be fully utilized. Among the battleships of the United Fleet, many battleships use 305mm main guns. At this distance, the 305mm the main gun is somewhat disadvantaged. Because the distance is too far, the shells of the 305mm main gun are too light, and they float when fired, making it difficult to hit the target. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621, Boiling Ocean. Boom. 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 The battleship Bavaria of the German Navy opened fire first. 3 triple-mounted 380mm main guns with 50 times the caliber smashed shells weighing 1 ton towards the battleship Revenge, the flagship of the United Fleet. Other German warships also opened fire immediately. All of a sudden, there was a rumble of gunfire on the sea, and shells one after another, under the action of huge kinetic energy, smashed into the enemy's warship. The shells fell into the sea, splashing huge jets of water. The water splashed down and made a crackling sound, as if the entire sea was boiling. Another battlefield, the second battle line of the German Navy and the second battle line of the United Fleet, also began to exchange fire. The 11 battleships of the German Navy against the 11 battleships purchased by the British from the United States. The battleship Arkansas was sunk by the carrier-based aircraft of the German Navy, so only 11 ships remained. Although, the number of both sides is the same. However, judging from the performance of warships, the German Navy undoubtedly has the advantage. The 2 Nevada-class battleships and 2 New York-class battleships of the British Navy are equipped with 356mm main guns, and the rest of the battleships are equipped with 305mm main guns. The 3 Kaiser-class battleships and 4 Helgoland-class battleships of the German Navy are all equipped with 343mm main guns. Only 4 Nassau-class battleships were equipped with 305mm main guns. The German Navy's 50 caliber 343mm main gun is not weaker than the US Navy's 45 caliber 356mm main gun, and its armor-piercing capability is even stronger. Among the remaining battleships of the British Navy, except for the Wyoming-class battleships equipped with 305mm main guns of 50 times the caliber, the rest are equipped with 305mm main guns of 45 times the caliber. The 4 Nassau-class battleships of the German Navy are all equipped with 305mm main guns of 50 times the caliber. In terms of defense, the defense of the Nevada-class battleship is indeed very strong. But the defense of those battleships of the German Navy is not weak. It's just that, except for the Nevada-class battleships, the defense of the rest of the battleships is not very good. Therefore, considering the performance of all aspects, the performance of the German Navy is undoubtedly better. It also has a greater advantage in naval battles. Of course, this does not mean that the German Navy will definitely win in this naval battle. After all, there are too many factors that determine the outcome of a naval battle. Occupy performance is just one of them. Boom. 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 At a distance of 13,000 meters, the battleships on both sides opened fire violently, one after another. The shells roared and smashed towards the opponent's battleship. The cannons boomed, as if thunder was being struck. The battlecruiser formation of the German Navy is still deterring 11 battlecruisers formed along battle line. Their speed has been increased to 25 knots. General, the main fleet, has already fought with the British. Your Excellency Commander ordered us to cooperate with the second battle line and give priority to the battleships purchased by the British from the United States. The staff officer reported. Lieutenant General Spee nodded. The British didn't run away and dared to fight us. Obviously, they thought they could defeat our main force before we arrived. I really don't know where General John Jellicoe came from. Confidence. How long can we reach the battlefield? Lieutenant General Spee asked. General, at the current speed, it is estimated that in about an hour, we can appear just in front of the British's second battle line. If the timing is good, we can even grab the T prefix. The officer said. Very good, let's do this. After an hour, cooperate with General Hipper to eliminate those American warships. Then rush to cooperate with the commander and eliminate all the remaining warships of the British, French and Italians. In this battle, we must not let another British capital ship leave. We must sink them all. Lieutenant General Spee said. If they can sink all the capital ships of the United Fleet in this battle, then they will solve all the problems once and for all. The German Navy will truly dominate the world. Even if all the navies of other countries in the world add up, they will not be the opponent of the German Navy. The strength of the German Navy will far exceed that of the Royal Navy of the British Empire when it dominated the world. Of course, Lieutenant General Spee is very confident in winning this naval battle. The German Navy not only has an absolute advantage in the number of capital ships. In terms of battleship performance, the battleships of the German Navy also dominate. What's more, the German Navy also has aircraft carriers to assist in the battle. It won't be long before the carrier-based aircraft can continue to attack. At that time, it will be enough to make the United Fleet pay a greater price again. In Lieutenant Admiral Spee's view, this operation of the United Fleet is simply death. It is a foolish act for them to send so many naval officers and soldiers to death for the slightest hope of victory. The battle reached a climax almost from the very beginning, and both sides were unwilling to let go of this rare opportunity, and both wanted to win. Therefore, they are all trying their best to defeat the enemy. Boom. 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 Around the battleship King Albert, high water columns continued to splash. The 3 Normandy-class battleships of the French Navy are firing fiercely on it. The Normandy-class battleship is equipped with 4 triple-mounted 45 caliber 340mm main guns, although its performance is far inferior to the 50 caliber 343mm main guns of the German Navy. But the victory lies in the large number of main guns. The 3 Normandy-class battleships have 36 340mm main guns. It is 4 times the main gun of the battleship King Albert. The pressure on the battleship Prince Regent of Louis Tybalt is relatively much smaller. Battleship Brittany is equipped with 5 double-mounted 305mm main guns with a caliber of 45 times. Although the battleship Goober has 6 45 caliber 305mm main guns, only 5 main guns can fire on the same side. The 45 caliber 305mm main gun of the French Navy is difficult to tear the armor of the battleship Louis-Paul Regent, but the 50 caliber 343mm main gun of the Louis Tybalt Regent battleship, but it can easily tear the armor of the battleships of the French Navy. Of course, because of the siege, the battleships King Albert and Louis-Paul Regent are in danger. But in fact, they can also deal a fatal blow to the enemy. Chapter 622, Sacrifice. Boom. 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 The fierce exchange of fire continued. The capital ships of both sides were firing desperately, smashing heavy shells one after another at the opponent's warship in an attempt to sink the opponent's warship and win the battle. The battleships Grand Kurfürst and Governor of the Border of the German Navy were responsible for dealing with the battleships Giant and Dreadnought of the British Navy. These two battleships are dreadnought ships built by the British Navy in the early days, especially the battleship Dreadnought, which created a precedent for dreadnought ships. However, as of now, these two battleships are seriously outdated. Not only is the armor weak, but the firepower is also not strong. It is undoubtedly very difficult for the 305mm main gun with 45 times the caliber to penetrate the armor of the battleships Great Kurfürst and Border Governor. You know, these two battleships belong to the King-class battleships, and they can be regarded as the most powerful battleships in the world. Keep firing. Aim at one point. 20 minutes later, I don't want to see the British battleship Giant still floating on the sea. The captain of the battleship Grand Kurfürst ordered. Yes, sir. Boom. 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 The 3 triple-mounted 50 caliber 380mm main guns of the battleship Great Kurfürst fired wildly at the battleship Giant. Shells weighing 1 ton fell on the sea surface, splashing a column of water as high as 10 meters. The British naval officers and soldiers on the battleship Giant all looked pale. For them, it was too difficult for them to fight against the powerful battleship Grand Kurfürst. After all, the displacement of the battleship Giant is only a little over 20,000 tons. The displacement of the battleship Grand Kurfürst is as high as 37,000 tons, which is almost twice that of the Giant. In front of the battleship Grand Kurfürst, the Giant was nothing more than a child. The 380mm main gun of the battleship Grand Kurfürst can easily tear the weakly defended battleship Giant into pieces. It can be said that in front of the battleship Grand Kurfürst, the battleship Giant has no chance of winning. The same situation also applies to the battleship Dreadnought. The battleship Governor of the Frontier, which is the enemy, belongs to the third ship of the King-class battleship. Although the battleship Dreadnought ushered in the era of dreadnoughts, it is already outdated after all. It can be regarded as a confrontation between the oldest dreadnought and the latest dreadnought. What kind of result this will have is naturally conceivable. The officers and soldiers on the battleship Giant and the battleship Dreadnought all have a feeling that they are clearly destined to be abandoned pawns. Admiral John Jellicoe attempted to use them to hold back the newest battleships of the German Navy, thus creating an opportunity for the French Navy to sink the battleships King Albert and Prince Regent Leopold. But the officers and soldiers on the battleships Giant and Dreadnought didn't think so. They were worried that after the German battleships King Albert and Leopold Regent were sunk, they may have been sunk before. Damn. How could your excellency commander issue such an order? Isn't this telling us to die? The captain of the battleship Giant complained. He looked at the cannonballs hitting the sea in horror. Each of these cannonballs had the power to seriously injure them. If it hits the vital point, it is even more likely to be sunk with one shot. God bless. The German shells must not hit us. Otherwise, we will die. The captain of the battleship Giant kept praying to God. It seems that this is the only thing he can do now. As soon as the battle started, the battleships Giant and Dreadnought of the British Navy were suppressed. Especially after the battleship Great Kurfürst and the battleship Governor of the Frontier formed a straddle fire and switched to concentrated fire. They were even more dangerous. The large caliber main gun shells continuously exploded around the two battleships, making the two battleships like small boats in a storm, which may capsize at any time. On the battleship Revenge, the flagship of the British Navy, Admiral John Jellicoe and Lieutenant General David Beatty are closely watching the progress of the battle. The faces of both of them were not very good looking, because the situation on the battlefield seemed to be very unfavorable to them. Your Excellency, the situation of the battleship Giant and the battleship Dreadnought is very bad. The two powerful battleships of the Germans may hit them at any time, and the 380mm artillery shell is obviously not the Giant. The armor of the battleship and the battleship Dreadnought can withstand it. Once hit, it may be severely damaged or even sunk. At that time, our advantage will be gone, Lieutenant General David Beatty said. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded. Once the battleships Giant and Dreadnought are sunk, then the two King-class battleships of the German Navy can join the battleships of other combined fleets in the attack. At that time, they will have no numerical advantage. In the case that the performance is seriously inferior to the German Navy, there is not much chance of winning. I hope the Giant and Intrepid can last longer. Other warships must also seize this rare opportunity to sink the German warship. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to win it, said Admiral John Jellicoe. In the plan of Admiral John Jellicoe, the battleships Giant and Dreadnought were originally abandoned children. As long as they can gain the upper hand in this naval battle, or win, it doesn't matter, even if the two battleships are lost. Admiral John Jellicoe's only concern now is whether the two battleships can hold on. If it is sunk soon, the problem will be serious. Damn the French. Their 5 battleships beat the Germans' 2 battleships. Why haven't they succeeded yet? Admiral John Jellicoe was also secretly anxious. He pinned all his hopes on the French. If the French Navy can sink the battleships King Albert and Louis-Paul Regent, then the advantages of the combined fleet can be further expanded. The possibility of winning will also be further improved. Chapter 623, Combustion. The battleship Normandy, the flagship of the French Navy. Admiral Lame was pacing back and forth anxiously in the conning tower. Although the rumble of cannons echoed in his ears, it did not reassure him. Although they besieged 2 battleships of the German Navy with 5 battleships, the French Navy had no chance of winning at all. Damn it. Why is this happening? 5 of our battleships hit 2 of the Germans, but we still haven't been able to get a hit. If this continues, what should we do? Admiral Lame said angrily. The other French naval officers on the bridge said nothing. They all knew that Admiral Lame was getting angry, and they didn't dare touch him. Brow. If it triggers the anger of Admiral Lame, it will be bad. Although the French Navy has an absolute advantage in numbers, it does not have an advantage at all in other aspects. In terms of the performance of warships, the French have long had no ambition to vigorously develop their navy. How can they build advanced battleships? In terms of the performance of the warships, they are lagging behind those of the British and German warships. The quality of naval officers and soldiers is also not comparable to that of the navies of Britain and Germany. So, this is what is happening now. General, a telegram from General Jellicoe. He wants us to sink the 2 German battleships as soon as possible, a communications officer reported. Bastard. Of course I also want to sink the German battleship, but I can't do it now. What can I do? Admiral Lame roared angrily. The officer immediately lowered his head, not daring to say anything more. Send a telegram to the ships and tell them that we are running out of time and must sink the German warships as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will lose. At that time, we will be like those sunk by the Germans before. Like a battleship, they all sank to the bottom of the sea. If you want to survive, you have to do your best. Admiral Lame ordered. Boom. Suddenly, the battleship Normandy shook violently. Admiral Lame lost his footing and fell on the deck all of a sudden, falling like a dog eating shit. Damn, we were hit. Report the loss. Admiral Lame roared at the top of his voice. At the same time, I secretly prayed to God in my heart, praying that the injury would not be too serious. Otherwise, this battle will be even more impossible to fight. Report to the general. The bow deck was hit, the armor was penetrated, and 2 cabins on the 2nd floor were blown up, causing a fire. The officer quickly understood the problem. Admiral Lame couldn't help but breathe a relief, order damage control, and immediately carry out damage control. Sigh. Yes, General. Boom. A violent explosion sounded on the German battleship King Albert, and the conning tower was shrouded in flames. Got We hit the German command tower. Admiral Lane cheered. Although this shell was not fired from the battleship Normandy, as long as it can severely damage the German warship, that is a good thing. For the French Navy, it is a rare victory. Battleship Gascony of the French Navy. Their luck was very good, and the first hit the command tower of the battleship King Albert. But it is a pity that the 340mm main gun of the French Navy is a bit difficult to face the 350mm armor of the King Albert battleship. The shell exploded without being able to penetrate the armor, and the huge impact caused the officers in the command tower to fall all over the ground. My head also feels dizzy. However, it failed to cause further harm to them. When the smoke cleared and the German warship was found to be intact, Admiral Lane was dumbfounded. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What's going on? How is it possible that the armor of the conning tower was not able to penetrate the Germans? How thick is the armor of their conning tower? Admiral Lane wanted to cry without tears. The battleship King Albert did not affect its combat effectiveness because of this hit. Instead, the more he fought, the more courageous he became. In less than 5 minutes, he scored another hit. Or 343mm artillery shell hit the number 4 main turret on the stern of the battleship Normandy. The 340mm thick armor cannot withstand the shells fired by the 343mm main gun with a caliber of 50 times. The power of the cap-piercing projectile was fully displayed at this moment. The shell penetrated the armor of the turret and exploded inside. The huge power destroyed the entire turret. At this moment, there are hundreds of kilograms of bombs in the turret that have just been extracted, and a martyrdom explosion occurred because of this. The entire stern of the ship burned in the explosion. Frightened French captain immediately ordered to inject water into the ammunition depot under the main turret, for fear that it would cause the ammunition depot to explode. In that case, the battleship Normandy would be completely finished. Rayo is like this. The battleship Normandy, which lost a main turret, has also greatly reduced its firepower. At the same time, the morale of the naval officers and soldiers on the battleship was also greatly affected. Damn it, send a telegram to the battleship Gascony and the battleship Flanders and ask them what happened. They fired at the enemy ships undisturbed. Why is the hit rate so low? Admiral Lane was very dissatisfied. When the battleship Normandy attracted the firepower of the battleship King Albert, no warship fired on the Gascony and Flanders at all. Under such circumstances, it should have been easier for them to hit the target. But now, their performance is simply not enough to satisfy Admiral Lane. Admiral Lane's questioning did not play a good role in promoting the development of the war situation. On the contrary, it made their situation worse and worse. The battleships Brittany and Goober of the French Navy scored multiple consecutive hits. However, it is undoubtedly impossible for the 340mm main guns and 305mm main guns they fired to penetrate the thick armor of the battleship Luitpold Regent. However, the counterattack of the battleship Luitpold made the French battleship unable to bear it. Boom. Or 343mm artillery shell hit the number 2 funnel of the French battleship Brittany. The shell directly interrupted the chimney, and the falling chimney hit the number 3 main turret located between the two chimneys, destroying it. At the same time, the explosion also ignited a fire, causing the superstructure of the battleship Brittany to start burning. Chapter 624, Sinking. Why hasn't the German warship been sunk yet? Our time is running out. Admiral John Jellicoe was secretly startled. Although, in the fierce battle, their warships continued to score hits. However, at most it caused some minor injuries to the warships of the German Navy, and there is still a long way to go before sinking the warships of the German Navy. General, the armor of the German warships is too thick, and it is very difficult to sink their warships. Lieutenant General David Beatty said. The battleships of the German Navy adopt a key defense. As long as those important parts are not penetrated, even if the battleship is riddled with holes, it is difficult to be sunk. Admiral John Jellicoe nodded. The fierce naval battles have proved the correctness of the Germans in designing warships. In contrast, the British Navy's emphasis on firepower and speed, while despising the design ideas of defense, has been proven wrong. Boom. A group of dazzling flames erupted on the battleship Dreadnought of the British Navy. This is the battleship governor of the frontier of the German Navy, which scored the first hit in this naval battle. or 380mm artillery shell hit the superstructure of the battleship Dreadnought. The shell exploded, directly blasting a big hole in the upper hull of the battleship Intrepid. At the same time, a raging fire broke out. Although such an injury was not fatal to the battleship Dreadnought, it was obviously not comfortable. Damn it, the Dauntless was it. Admiral John Jellicoe couldn't help cursing. Lieutenant General David Beatty also looked a little ugly. They all know that the battleship Dreadnought is in front of the King-class battleship of the German Navy, just like an old man in his twilight years facing a young man. The strength gap between the two sides is really too big. If the 380mm main gun of the King-class battleship hits the vital point of the Dreadnought battleship, only one shell is enough to cause the Dreadnought battleship to be severely damaged or even sunk. After being hit, the damage control personnel on the battleship Intrepid immediately carried out damage control. But almost all of them were pale. They knew that, after being hit once, there would be a second hit soon, and a third hit, which would be a fatal threat to the battleship Dreadnought. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, the battleship Border Governor hit the battleship Fearless again, or 380mm artillery shell hit the stern of the battleship Dreadnought. The violent explosion directly blew up the stern of the ship to pieces, not only blowing up the steering gear, but also blowing up a propeller. This made the battleship Dreadnought slower and slower, and at the same time, lost its ability to turn. What's more terrible is that seawater is pouring into the battleship from the big hole in the stern of the ship. Under such circumstances, loss control is of little use. At most, it can only slow down the sinking speed of the battleship a little. The captain of the battleship Intrepid immediately asked Admiral John Jellicoe to abandon the ship. However, General John Jellicoe stubbornly refused to agree. He hoped that the battleship Dreadnought could continue to hold on. In that case, at least it could hold back the firepower of a terrifying German battleship. Otherwise, that battleship would be able to fire on other battleships, which would make the British Navy's situation in this battle even more difficult. Faced with the almost ruthless orders of Admiral John Jellicoe, the British naval officers and soldiers of the battleship Dreadnought had no choice but to persevere. They cursed Admiral John Jellicoe while doing damage control and trying to save themselves. It's just that when the battleship Governor of the Border hit the battleship Intrepid for the third time, the battleship completely lost the possibility of survival. The violent explosion made all the efforts of the damage control personnel in vain. The seawater poured into the battleship more violently, causing the battleship to sink at an accelerated rate. Soon, the battleship Dreadnought sank into the sea, while the bow of the ship was raised high and lifted out of the water. Crack. The keel of the battleship Intrepid broke directly, because it could not withstand the force of such a blow. The entire battleship was broken into 2 pieces. The broken hull quickly sank into the sea. The sinking of the battleship Dreadnought made the comparison of the number of battleships on the battle line 12 to 14. Although the British Navy still has an advantage, its advantage is gradually disappearing. The German Navy is changing from a disadvantage to an advantage. After the battleship Border Governor sank the battleship Dreadnought, it immediately aimed its guns at the battleship Giant, and together with the battleship Grand Care first, flanked it. At this moment, the battleship Giant is not in a good situation. During the period when the battleship Dreadnought was killed, the battleship Giant also ate a 380mm shell. A large part of the side was blown off. Although it was above the waterline, it was enough to scare the officers and soldiers of the battleship Giant out of their wits. When the battleship Governor of the Border also fired on it, the British naval officers and soldiers on the battleship Giant were completely desperate. When they were weak and attacked by 2 King-class battleships, one could imagine what the final result would be. 2 minutes later, the battleship Giant was hit, and the shell was fired from the battleship Great Kerfurra. They don't seem to want the battleship Border Governor to rob them of their own battle results, so this time they performed very well. The 380mm shell hit the main turret on the side of the battleship Giant. Although the Giant battleship has 5 main turrets, the layout is very strange. Along the central axis of the battleship, only 3 main turrets are arranged, and the other 2 are located on both sides of the battleship. This makes it possible for the Giant battleship to concentrate at most 4 main turrets when firing in one direction. The 280mm thick turret armor, in front of the 380mm shells, is no different from paper paste, and it is easily torn apart. The shell exploded, and the two 305mm shells in the turret and several hundred kilograms of bombs also died together. The entire turret was destroyed in the explosion. At the same time, the fire went along the open fire door, and went straight to the ammunition depot under the turret. You know, there are hundreds of 305mm shells in the ammunition depot. Once these shells are detonated, the fate can be imagined. Chapter 625, The advantage is no longer. Boom. An earth-shattering explosion sounded, and more than 100 305mm shells were quite powerful. In the violent explosion, the entire side of the battleship Giant was blown up. Together with the superstructure, it was bombed to pieces. It looked as if it had been bitten by a monster. A large amount of seawater poured into the battleship Giant along the hull. Such trauma is undoubtedly fatal. It is almost impossible for damage control personnel to plug the loopholes. Good job. The captain of the battleship Grand Kurfürst shouted excitedly. After receiving the report, Admiral Reinhard Scheer was also full of smiles. Very good. Now it is 12-13. The British only have one more battleship than us. Order the battleship Grand Kurfürst, assist the battleship King, and attack the British battlecruiser Tiger. The battleship Border Governor assist the battleship **** and attack the Italian Andre Duilio battleship No. Now, it is a good opportunity for us to reverse the gap and expand our results, so don't miss it. Yes, General. The communications officer immediately conveyed Admiral Reinhard Scheer's order to the battleship Grand Kurfürst and the battleship Border Governor. The battlecruiser Tiger of the British Navy and the battleship Andre Duilio of the Italian Navy were besieged by 4 King-class battleships of the German Navy, and the situation was even more difficult. On another battlefield, the 2nd Battle Line of the German Navy led by Lieutenant General Hipper and the 2nd Battle Line of the British Navy led by Lieutenant Admiral Martin also fought very fiercely. In order to sink the opponent's warship, both sides intentionally shortened the combat distance, which directly shortened the combat distance from the initial 13,000 meters to 10,000 meters. At this distance, the main guns of both sides can cause great damage to each other. Of course, the defense of the German warships is still dominant overall. The defense of the Nevada-class battleships purchased by the British Navy from the United States is even more extreme. It's just that the defense of other battleships is not so strong. This makes them not only have no advantage in the battle, but are still developing towards a disadvantage. On the battleship Nevada, Vice Admiral Martin's face sank like water. Although the fleet he commands is very powerful, he has no confidence in winning the final victory at all. This naval battle is really too unfavorable for the United Fleet. Before the battle started, they still had some advantages in the number of battleships. However, as Germany dispatched a large number of planes to attack them, causing them the loss of a full 10 battleships, the United Fleet was immediately at a serious disadvantage in terms of strength. Originally, Lieutenant General Martin was still counting on the victory of the 1st Battle Line. In this case, there may be a possibility of turning defeat into victory. However, at this time of the war, the United Fleet not only has no combat advantage, but is still paying losses. If you wait until the battlecruiser formation of the German Navy arrives on the battlefield, their disadvantages will be even more obvious. At that time, they will lose. General, on the side of the 1st Battle Line, the battleships Dreadnought and Giant were sunk one after another. An officer reported. Damn. Where are the Germans? Have any battleships been sunk? Lieutenant General Martin asked. Not so far. The defense of the German warships is very strong, and our warships are powerless against them. The officer sighed. Now the 1st Battle Line has become 13-12, and we will soon have no advantage. When the German battlecruisers arrive, we will only be defeated. Lieutenant General Martin's face could not help flashing a trace of despair. Boom. An explosion sounded on the battleship Nevada, and the whole battleship shook violently. Lieutenant General Martin's face became even more ugly. Report the loss. Lieutenant General Martin said almost through gritted teeth. General, the No. 4 turret of the stern was hit. However, the German shells failed to penetrate the turret, but the gunners inside were all shocked to death. The damage control officer reported. Lieutenant General Martin breathed a sigh of relief. The powerful defense of the battleship Nevada undoubtedly stood the test. Otherwise, they might have been sunk long ago. However, Lieutenant General Martin's rejoicing seems a little too early. 2 minutes later, the second battle line he led lost a battleship. The battleship North Dakota at the tail of the battle line was hit by the battleship West ** of the German Navy. During the salvo of the battleship West, two 305mm shells hit the battleship North Dakota. One shell penetrated the armor of the conning tower of the West **, which was only 292mm thick. The 305mm main gun with 50 times the caliber and the combination of capped armor-piercing projectiles have extremely powerful armor-piercing capabilities. This allowed the shell to penetrate the armor and explode inside the conning tower. After the shell exploded, there were no living people in the entire command tower, and there were stumps and broken arms everywhere. This directly put the battleship North Dakota in a state of no command. Another shell hit the waterline armor of the US North Dakota. The waterline armor, which was only 254mm thick, was easily torn apart. Below the waterline, a wide opening was torn. Seawater poured into the battleship frantically from this big opening. Due to the confusion of command, the damage control personnel did not conduct damage control immediately. By the time they reacted, there was already a lot of seawater pouring into the battleship. It is impossible to even close the watertight compartment, and I can only watch more and more seawater pouring into the battleship. The final result was that the battleship North Dakota capsized on the surface of the sea due to too much water ingress and sank directly into the sea in such a posture. The sinking of the battleship North Dakota left only 10 battleships on the second battle line of the British Navy. In terms of numbers, the combined fleet is already at a disadvantage. And it's an absolute disadvantage. When the battle cruisers of the German Navy arrive, they will be completely defeated. Of course, this will take a while. After the battleship West sank the battleship North Dakota, it aimed its guns at the battleship Delaware of the British Navy and cooperated with the battleship Nassau to attack Delaware. The battleship launched an attack in order to be able to sink the battleship Delaware as soon as possible and further expand the results of the battle. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.